I'll call the March 4th Planning Commission meeting to order. Will everyone please stand up and Commissioner Ketting join us and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Staff, roll call, please.
All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Klostermeyer, who is excused this evening.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, item number 4 is our public comments. This is the time we take public comments on items that are not on the agenda that are generally within the purview of the Planning Commission. If you wish to speak, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Since the community room is unavailable to us this evening, we will admit a limited number of the public in our council chambers. We can only have a total of 25 people seated in the audience at any given time for social distance purposes. Please call 949-270-8165 to provide public comments on non-agenda items. First, we'll go to the public who's present in these chambers. Seeing none. Do we have anyone on the phone? Okay. Item number 5 is request for continuances. Staff, are there any requests for continuances?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have a request to continue item number 3, and that's the Westcliff Plaza parking waiver. So we'll be continuing that date certain to March 18th, and that's it.
Okay, great, and we'll address that in a few moments. Consent items. The item is number 1, minutes of the February 18th, 2021 meeting. If there's anyone to comment again, please call 949-270-8165. Mr. Mosier has provided us some edits. And is there any questions from any commissioners? Seeing none, anyone in the public who wishes to comment? And anyone on the phone? Okay, call for a motion, please.
Motion for approval with the, Mr. Mosier's comments.
Thank you. And a second, please. Okay, great. I'll call for the vote.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, I lost the vote.
If we could just show your hands, raise your hands.
Those in favor?
I'm abstaining since I was absent.
Thank you.
The motion carries 5-0 with Secretary Kleiman abstaining.
Perfect. All right, I'll move on to our public hearing items. Item number 2 is the circulation element update status report. This is the site location is citywide. Again, if you want to comment on this item, please call 949-270-8165, and staff will provide a oral status report on the update of the general plan circulation element.
Thank you, Chair Wagon. Jim Campbell, Deputy Director. So I wanted to just give you a quick briefing on the status. We will have a draft circulation element. It will be published and available, be published online. It'll be available on Friday, the 12th of March. And then obviously the public will have an opportunity to review that and comment that. We will also reference that in our upcoming staff report for the March 18th Planning Commission, where we will bring it to you as a study session item. So that's the next opportunity for the public to comment on the draft, and so we look forward to having everyone here or on Zoom or calling in to discuss the draft circulation element. So we'll have the consultant, Tony Petros, who's been assisting us, and Tony Brine will be providing a full briefing on what's in that document at your next meeting. So there is my update for the moment.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Yes, Commissioner Ketting.
Jim,
Yes.
March 12th isn't on our tentative meeting schedule. That's a Zoom call?
I'm sorry, let me clarify. We'll have the study session at your next Planning Committee regular meeting on the 18th of March.
I thought you said the 12th.
The draft will be published online on the 12th.
Got it.
And we're going to be
Thank
sending
you.
out a public media blitz, if you will. We actually sent out an email earlier today announcing that it will be available on the 12th. So I just wanted to let everyone know there, and in our packet that'll go out on that date, we'll obviously include a draft for you, so you don't have to go and find it. But obviously it'll be there for anyone to review and comment, and we'll see you on the 18th of March to discuss it.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioner questions? Okay, I'll go to the public. Again, if you would like to call in, the number is 949-270-8165. And first I'll go to the public present in the chambers.
Yes, David Tanner, Newport Beach resident. I did get the email today, so that's working, so that's really good. When the draft is made available, I'd like to request that the appendices for the draft be made available online as well, so that the public can look at the assumptions that were used, the density calculations, the growth calculations, whatever it is. We'd like to see what thought process went into the reaching the conclusions in the draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Anyone? Yes, Mr. Mosher.
Chair Wigand, members of the commission, my name is Jim Mosher. This may be a little bit premature, and perhaps it was covered at one of the workshops and I missed it, but I was previewing item 7 on tonight's agenda, and I noticed it mentions the topic of environmental justice, and it says that the city is presently updating its circulation and housing element, and environmental justice policy considerations are included in the updated elements. So environmental justice being entirely new to Newport Beach, I'm just curious how the circulation element will address environmental justice. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mosher. I don't recall hearing about it in our Zoom meetings. I don't know if Mr. Keding has either, but Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Chair, what I wanted to indicate, now the draft document that's going to come out is going to actually have all the policy considerations and edits to the existing policies and then new policies as well. One of the items that we don't have completed, of course, is a traffic analysis. And the assumptions that I think Mr. Tanner was referencing are really the housing element considerations. You know, where is the housing going to go and how does that fit within the overall framework of our circulation element? We don't have that nailed down yet because we don't have the draft housing element completed at this point in time. That is actually coming out as well next week, and we'll be going through a process with the Housing Element Update Committee. And so at the end of the day, what those assumptions are for housing density and locations is going to be established by the draft housing element policy. And then we'll be doing a traffic modeling effort to see how that will fit our existing circulation system. And so there is the possibility that there could be some improvements that might be identified through that traffic analysis. And we won't be having that part of the circulation element for quite a number of months now. And that'll all be part of the environmental review process, but also part of the element creation process, if you will. The results of that traffic analysis might suggest that we make improvements to certain intersections or roadways. We don't know the answers to that yet. So those assumptions and then the impacts of that aren't going to be part of what's going to be delivered next week. So I wanted to make sure everyone kind of understood that.
Okay, and then the environmental justice stuff.
Yes, environmental justice is an important consideration. It's required to be included into our thinking, and so we've been considering those types of policies, if you will, or the underpinnings of what that all means as we develop these policies. I don't know exactly precisely how the draft is going to look, and it's not going to say the words environmental justice on the front of it as well, but that's something that we'll have to evaluate when we see the draft element. Again, it's still under development, and we'll have a draft of it out, and we've only seen very limited aspects of it, but that will be considered in there, and I think we would like to have the public's input on it as well.
Great, thank you. Any other members of the public? Anyone on the phone? Okay. All right, commissioners, anything else you want to discuss on it? Okay, we'll move on to our next item. Public hearing items number 3, Westcliff Parking Plaza Waiver, PA 2019-266. Site location is 1000 through 1150 Irvine Avenue. Again, if you wish to comment on this item, please call 949-270-8165. Again, staff requests that this item be continued to the next Planning Commission meeting on March 18th. I'll open the public hearing, and we won't be closing it. We'll keep it open. The commission will take any public comment related to the continuation on this. Again, that number is 270-8165. Anyone in the chambers?
Would it be appropriate to comment my views on this, or
I would-
are you
I would hold
limiting
on-
just to the continuance?
Yeah, this is just on the continuance.
I have no comment at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone on the phone? Okay, all right, then I will go back to the commission. Any other comments? All right, and we need to make an motion in a second to continue? Okay.
Yes.
Pull up a motion from someone? Anyone? Commissioner Keding?
Motion to continue to the 18th.
Great. In a
I'll
second.
second.
All right. Call for the vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our next item is item number 4, Superior Avenue Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge Parking Lot and Recreation Area Project Appeal. PA 2019-014. Site location is the bridge to span Superior Avenue north of West Coast Highway intersection, parking lot and recreation area at northeast corner of intersection of West Coast Highway, Superior Avenue, Hogue Lower Campus, and Sunset View Park. Again, if you want to comment on this item, please call 949-270-8165. Staff, please present your presentation.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Wigand. Again, Deputy Director Jim Campbell. So we're going to have a presentation here by Chelsea Krager, Associate Planner. This is an appeal of the zoning administrator's approval of a coastal development permit. We also have present here tonight Andy Tran, a Senior Civil Engineer with the Public Works Department. They're the ones who are designing this project. And we also have the environmental consultant here to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chelsea, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners. As Mr. Campbell stated, Chelsea Krager with the Planning Division. This project is an appeal of the previously approved by the Zoning Administrator Coastal Development Permit for the Superior Avenue Pedestrian and Bicycle Bridge. I also want to point out that you do have a hard copy of the PowerPoint presentation in front of you. So if you want to flip through there, you certainly are able to. So the first thing, let's start by just kind of getting our bearings on the site. So this is a vicinity map. You can see Sunset Ridge Park to the left there. The project site is outlined in red, so you do see the bridge going across Superior Avenue. To the north of Sunset View Park is Villa Balboa. So that's the Sunset View Park is just right below Villa Balboa. It has that sidewalk passing through it. You also have Newport Crest. Residential community to the north above Sunset Ridge Park, more residential to the south of West Coast Highway, and some commercial to the south as well. The site is presently developed with a 64-space parking lot, and there's some undeveloped area there as well. With this map up, I also want to talk about permit jurisdiction. So Sunset Ridge Park has a coastal development permit that was approved by the California Coastal Commission. So since that permit is in place, the California Coastal Commission retains permit jurisdiction for the park. So the abutment for the bridge that lands in Sunset Ridge Park is still under California Coastal Commission's permit jurisdiction. We have submitted an application to them for that aspect of the project, and so that has been submitted. This review or this application before you is only for the parts of the project that are within the city's jurisdiction. So it's the actual spanning of the bridge across the road and all of the developments that are on that parking lot side. So the project is a pedestrian and bicycle bridge that crosses Superior Avenue. It's a 130-space public parking lot to replace the previous 64. It's expanded passive open space at Sunset View Park. It's an addendum to the previously adopted mitigative negative declaration. Also included with the project is a request for relief from Title 21. That's our implementation plan development standards. And that request for relief is for retaining walls up to a height of 25 feet. I'll get into detail of that on a later slide. And also for the bridge to be up to 32 feet. Up to 35 feet is what's permitted with approval of a coastal development permit. And I'll have a slide that goes into better detail on the height of that as well. So once again, just to get our bearings on the project, I have some site photos. This is our view from West Coast Highway as it intersects Superior Avenue, looking up Superior. And this is a view from Sunset Ridge Park, looking down at the intersection that's in question. Andy Tran, Senior Civil Engineer, will give us some background of the project and explain how we got to where we are now. Go ahead and take it, Andy.
Thank you, Chelsea. Good evening, Chair Wagon, Commissioners. My name is Andy Tran. I'm a Senior Civil Engineer with the Public Works Department. I'm also serving as the project manager for this project. This evening, we thought it would be beneficial for the group to go over the background and project history in a chronological order. Starting in 1992, the city acquired the parking lot parcel from the state of California. And a few years later, in 2006, the city acquired the Sunset Ridge Park parcel, as well as the undeveloped parcel that you see on the left and right of Superior Avenue. Shortly after the acquisition of these parcels, the city began the environmental analysis and completed the EIR for the Sunset Ridge Park project, which was adopted in March of 2010. It's important to note that as part of the EIR, we did identify needing 97 parking spaces to serve the Sunset Ridge Park. In June of 2013, the city received the Sunset Ridge Park coastal development permit and began construction shortly after. And in December of 2014, the park was completed, open to the public. And unfortunately, the park was completed without any on-site parking due to our coastal development constraints. In February of 2018, the city received federal grant funding as part of the Bicycle Corridor Improvement Program for the construction of the Superior Avenue Bridge and Parking Lot project. Shortly after, we started developing the conceptual design and environmental analysis. The conceptual design did include multiple alternatives, including a two-story parking structure as well as various bridge structures, as you see on the renderings on the right. In 2019, staff held 5 community outreach meetings with the neighboring communities, including Newport Crest, Villa Balboa, West Newport, and Lido Sands. And for the most part, the project was very well received by the community. The only contentious item was the proposed dog park at the time, which has since been removed from the project. And in August of 2019, the conceptual design was presented to our Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission, who then recommended the proposed improvements to our City Council for their consideration. On November 19, 2019, our City Council adopted the environmental document for this project, which is a mitigated negative declaration. The Council also approved the conceptual design, which included a 3-span concrete bridge, as you see shown in the bottom rendering here. That meeting was very well attended. A lot of the residents from the nearby communities did attend the meeting and did voice their concerns in regards to the proposed dog park. During that meeting, Council did instruct staff to replace the proposed dog park with more passive recreational area. In May of 2020, the city received OCTA grant funding for the design of the West Coast Highway project. And during the August 25th, 2020 council meeting, City Council approved the engineering and environmental service agreements to start the design and environmental analysis for the West Coast Highway bridge project. During the development of the Superior Avenue bridge project, our consultant did suggest replacing the 3-span concrete bridge with an arch bridge design, which is the rendering that you see on the bottom there. So we shared this alternate design, the arch bridge design, with City Council, and City Council ultimately approved the revised design as part of our revised conceptual design. Turn this back to Chelsea.
Thanks, Andy. That takes us to the zoning administrator action. So in December 10 of last year, the zoning administrator reviewed the coastal development permit and the MND addendum for this project, including the revised design. 2 people spoke at the hearing. There was one written comment letter that was 16 pages, was submitted the day before the hearing. However, the zoning administrator was able to review it, thoughtfully consider it, and ultimately the application was approved at that zoning administrator meeting. I also, at this time, want to point out that there have been some questions about the Title 20 development standards. So Title 20 is our zoning code. Title 21 is our implementation plan, which is what we're approving with the coastal development permit. Title 20 development standards, including height, retaining walls, and use permit requirements, were waived back at the November 2019 City Council meeting. So City Council reviewed those things and waived those requirements. What we're reviewing is the coastal development permit for Title 21, our implementation plan. So after the zoning administrator approval in December, an appeal was filed on January 4th of 2021. The appeal form stated that the project does not conform to LCP standards or public access policies and that there was inadequate environmental review. City staff had several meetings with the appellant prior to and after the filing of the appeal. The appeal was originally scheduled to be before you on February 18th Planning Commission, the February 18th Planning Commission meeting. It was publicly noticed. However, we received an additional 46 pages from the appellant on February 10th. At that time, staff requested a continuance so that there would be time to thoughtfully consider and look at all of those pages and those comments that came in. So staff broke down that letter into 247 individual comments and responded to each of them, and that is available as an attachment to your staff report. Staff has reviewed all of those statements and believes that there are no new issues or problems identified. Some of the major themes of the appeal are on the CEQA process, piecemealing, and cumulative projects, and I'll talk a little bit more about the CEQA process on a specific slide later. There's also mention of a scenic easement that's at Sunset Ridge Park. It is from Caltrans, and there is ongoing coordination with Caltrans to remove that scenic easement. Also, a special tree was brought up, and that special tree is proposed to be relocated in accordance with Council Policy G1, which does go to PBNR. So let's look at the actual site plan and what's being proposed as far as development. On the left-hand side there, of course, you see the bridge, which does span Superior Avenue. We have those 130 parking spaces. The vehicular access is unchanged from Superior Avenue. Above that, you'll see some, the Sunset View Park area. That's expanded passive space area. And then down in our bottom left corner, there's kind of that white zigzag. That's the staircase that goes down to the corner at West Coast Highway. So as promised, I wanted to talk about bridge height a little bit. So this image will show you kind of the 2 tallest points of the bridge. So it's right at the edges there as the bridge goes over the sidewalk. Those are the tallest point as measured from existing grade, so the grade right beneath the bridge. The bridge is located in the shoreline height limitation zone. Excuse me. The shoreline height limitation zone allows structures up to 35 feet with approval of a coastal development permit. The 35-foot limitation is because the structure is considered a flat roof structure. The railing is flat, so therefore the maximum is 35 feet. The bridge structure is below that 35-foot limitation at those kind of worst point situations, which is where it's at its tallest point. Retaining walls. I mentioned that we are requesting relief from retaining wall maximum height. So this rendering shows the worst case scenario, which is along West Coast Highway. The maximum height permitted by the Title 21 development standards is 8 feet. So the relief is up to 25 feet. To soften that, there's landscaping proposed. The wall is actually proposed to be living. So the wall itself is irrigated, has pockets for landscaping. And the Title 21 allows for that relief request with appropriate findings, and all of those findings are included in your draft resolution. I also am including this image of a section that shows some of our other retaining walls. These ones are not up to 25 feet. These ones are much lower. But this image does show that terrace that goes from the parking lot on the left up to the expanded passive open space on the right. We also have a dashed line that shows the existing earthen mound. So if you've driven up or down Superior Avenue, you are familiar with this earthen mound. It's leftover fill from another project, but people do walk up onto it. And so you can see what the existing elevation is and how the expanded passive open space of Sunset View Park relates to that. So a part of the coastal development permit process is looking at public access. The impacts to public access from this project are overall a net positive. First, there's a net gain of 66 parking spaces with the new 130 parking space park. There's increased access to Sunset Ridge Park directly from that new parking lot. There's no change to vehicular access. There's no proposed change to any crosswalks with this project. There's additional and enhanced viewing opportunities with the development of this project, from Sunset View Park, from that expanded passive open space, from the bridge itself, and from a plaza area that's kind of between the parking lot, the parking spaces, and the bridge itself. All of these provide additional viewing opportunities. Speaking of public views, here are the 6 viewpoints that we looked at with the mitigative negative declaration. So 3 of those viewpoints are looking towards the water. So from Superior Avenue area looking towards the coast and towards the water, but 3 of those views are also looking inland up Superior Avenue at what the bridge would look like. I have a couple of before and afters here showing what that bridge would look like in these photo simulations. So this first one is from West Coast Highway, looking up Superior Avenue, up at the bridge, and this is that new arched design. You can see the staircase kind of in the back there. And then the next one that I have is from Sunset Ridge Park. So this is standing at Sunset Ridge Park looking out at the coast. So you can see that blue water views are not affected. The coast itself is not blocked by the bridge. The bridge was specifically designed to be mindful of these coastal views. As Andy mentioned, the mitigative negative declaration was adopted by City Council in November of 2019. That included being circulated for public review and comment that is required. The addendum that's before you and that was went to the zoning administrator is because there was the change in design, also mentioned by Andy. It went from a 3-span concrete bridge to this arch design. So it's a change in design that we wanted to make sure was fully analyzed. And also the future West Coast Highway project became partially funded. So that became something that was reasonably foreseeable. And so we wanted to address that in the cumulative project analysis. There are very little details known about that potential future project at this time. The design has not been ironed out. Really, any further analysis beyond what we have here would be speculative. So what you see here on the left and called out with a little call out is that a white image that's about where that future bridge would be located. So this is cumulative impacts to views in a photo simulation, and once again, no effect on blue water views. I do want to point out that we are anticipating that this future project would likely have an EIR, an environmental impact report, completed with it. So I do have our recommended action here for you, which is to conduct a de novo public hearing and adopt a resolution affirming the decision of the zoning administrator, adopting the MND addendum, and approving the coastal development permit. I'm available for questions. Andy Tran is available for questions. And we also have our environmental consultant chambers group. We have one person who is here with us in person and one person who is tuning in via Zoom. So any of the CEQA questions, they'll be able to get into some detail on if you'd like.
Thank you, Chelsea. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, if I might just add to the discussion here a little bit before we move on. I kind of want to reinforce the purpose of this project, and it may not have come quite across the way it is intended. What we're really trying to do here is to expand access to Sunset Ridge Park. As indicated by Mr. Tran, we were not afforded the opportunity to build a parking lot for this park due to its environmental constraints. It was having a driveway through the Banning Ranch property. From an environmental perspective, it just was not approved by the Coastal Commission. And so right now, the park is really not living up to its full potential for use. And right now, we see people parking there at the corner and then walking across the street. And it is a wide street, and bringing children and equipment and items to go enjoy the park, it just is really kind of a constraint. And so the whole purpose of this project is really to provide direct access to the park, expand the parking as a result, and provide a safer means of accessing the park where no one would have to cross the sidewalk here at the crosswalk to gain access to the park when they park here. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce, the purpose of this park, of this project. You'll hear some comments here, and you've seen it in the comments from the appellant, that this is linked to a different project, a second bridge project. And that project isn't really here before you today, and it has not been designed, and we don't have enough information to do an adequate analysis of that park at this time. And so there is no removal of any crosswalks going on with this project. And I just want to kind of reemphasize the point that, this project is a standalone project. It is separate from that other project, and we have the environmental consultant here to address those concerns and comments that you'll be hearing tonight. Anyway, so we all do stand here ready to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Lowry?
Just a quick question. These are federal grants that are paying for the bridge, so we're, from your bullet point there and from what I read. So how does that work? Does the city pay for it and it's reimbursed? Is it all done through the federal grant system? Just the logistics of just how that grant process works.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned earlier, this project, the Superior Avenue project, does involve federal grants under the Bicycle Corridor Improvement Program. And part of this project, the city will be able to be reimbursed up to 80% of the cost for the bridge only, not the parking lot. So in this situation, the city can get up to $2.349 million to pay for the bridge.
Any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Kleiman?
Yeah, if someone could address the extent to which we've had, we meaning you, conversations with Coastal Commission staff, about this project or similar projects that were looked at, when getting to this point. Oh, Jim can take that.
Certainly, good question, Commissioner Kleiman. I personally had a discussion with Coastal Commission staff, the district manager, and other planners in a routine coordination meeting that we do. We periodically do these basically once a quarter, and we go over a variety of projects. We showed them the project. They expressed the need to go through all the analysis on the impacts of public access. We discussed coordination of the bridge abutment that's on the Sunset Ridge side, and whether that would be something that we could permit or something that they would permit as an amendment to that prior coastal development permit. So we had an extensive discussion, and we've also had more recent discussions, as the project has gone through the Coastal Commission, the zoning ministerial review process. They reached out to us, and we did discuss the project again. They obviously they've been informed of the concern by some residents about this project, and so we discussed it. They suggested that we provide a full and complete analysis in our evaluation of the project, and that would be sufficient. So if it does get appealed to the Coastal Commission, hopefully we've addressed all their concerns. And so we've had extensive discussions with the Coastal Commission staff on this.
So they didn't give you any indication that would lead you to believe that they're not supportive of this? I know there's a mention of that piece that's within their purview that has an incomplete application, but I know that's not necessarily relevant, but I'm curious as to what would be missing and why that would be incomplete as well.
Sure. Well, that application is pending with the Coastal Commission, and I can also add that our Public Works staff has been coordinating with their staff on that amended application as well, so there's been those ongoing discussions. But in my discussions with the Coastal Commission staff, they have not given us any indication that they would not be supportive of this project. Now, That being said, they haven't completed their review of the bridge abutment there, and the project that's before you today here is not before them, and so they haven't done a complete analysis.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ketting.
Mr. Campbell, following up on that, on the appeal, there was a statement in here that cites that the project does not conform to standards of the local coastal program for public access. What's the reaction of staff to that?
Well, we believe that we're providing additional public access through these improvements. We're expanding the parking lot. Obviously, we're providing more direct access to the park, safer in our opinion. We also have enhanced view opportunities as well, but we don't see the project in any respect impacting public access.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? Okay, I'll ask commissioners to report any ex parte communications, starting with Commissioner Rosine.
I had a conversation with the appellant.
I too had a conversation with the appellant.
I had a brief conversation with the appellant.
None for me.
None for me.
I had a conversation with the appellant and with several members of the public. Okay, it has on my notes, ask commissioners for questions of staff, who is also the applicant, but I'm pretty sure we just did. Is there anything else?
If you have other questions, we're
Okay.
happy to answer them.
Commissioner Rosine?
If and when this project is built, how will the park be accessed during construction, or is there any type of thought to that?
Assuming everything goes as planned, we hope to be in construction. We hope to start construction in September later this year. It's going to take about 14 to 16 months to complete the bridge. Fortunately, with the construction of the bridge and the parking lot, there will be very minimal impact to Sunset Ridge Park itself, other than the probably 2 to 3 months that's required to build the abutment on the park site.
Has there been any thought to parking issues during that time, where people would park, or how that would work? It's pretty limited.
Yes, we have given that actually a lot of thought, and we will try to reserve a few spots at the existing parking lot if we can. That's kind of a if there, because unfortunately for this project, what we need to do is we need to take a lot of the dirt from the northern side and move it down to the south, the existing parking lot site. So we'll do our best. I'm sure our contractor also would love to have a staging area in the existing parking lot also. So we'll see if we can set aside some spots for that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Commissioner Ketting?
Staff, I'm not sure who could answer this one. I was looking at the working drawings and trying to figure out, when you go over this, what I think is a very beautiful looking bridge, they have angled protective barriers going up. One side's a little higher. How high up are those?
Yeah, excuse me, the barrier is 8 feet tall from the deck floor. The top of the rails is 8 feet up.
Because one side seems higher, the way that design is required.
Yes, there is an arch design or aesthetics to it, but the actual barrier, the railings, is actually straight across, mimicking the floor of the bridge deck.
All right.
Consistent 8 feet.
While we're on that subject, will there be lights on this for the evening to walk across?
Only safety lighting down low, just to light up the walkway.
Just to light the walkway, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Very good.
Any other questions? All right, now is the time for the appellant. In the past, when we've had appeals, I've given 10 minutes for the appellant to make a presentation. So if staff would put a timer on that, please. Okay, Mr. Tanner.
Could I ask permission for the staff to complete their presentation? They showed a slide that talked about piecemealing and other things that they were going to talk to, and they didn't talk to it. So before I start, because I don't want to have to go over what they're saying, could we ask them to address what they said they were going to address on their slide?
I think that would be up to commissioners to further elaborate on that question. So if you want to address that during your comment, that would be.
I'm just wondering if they would do it first so that I can then respond to what they're saying rather than they respond to what I'm saying.
I'll tell you what, I'll ask the question after you give your presentation so we can.
Thank you.
get
My
that
name is
set up.
David Tanner. I'm the appellant in this particular case. I want to go over a little bit of the chronology again, give you a little slightly different view. 2014, that's when this project started. It's all of this that I'm telling you is in detail in the comments that I submitted, so I'm not telling you anything new. 2014, 2015 capital improvement program, it identified the project, and this is a quote, "The project begins work on studying possible pedestrian overcrossings," that's plural, "and intersection improvements at the intersection of Coast Highway and Superior Avenue." So the city uses the term project in 2014 for both Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is what you have before you tonight. Phase 2 is the West Coast Highway Bridge. So at that time, the city realized they would need funding. They realized in order to do that, they would need to have some plans to submit with the funding applications, and they began preparation of intersection improvement plans, which Andy was involved in, and a traffic analysis to justify the funding request to the sources that they were going to give the applications to. The city divided the project into two phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2, and they authorized staff to submit funding applications. In 2018, the city received funding for Phase 1. They then hired the existing environmental consultant and engineering consultant to do conceptual designs for Phase 1. Conceptual designs, I want to emphasize that. During 2018, 19, and 20, the city continued to submit funding applications for Phase 2. They weren't successful. They kept submitting, kept trying, and finally, they were successful in 2020 for partial funding for Phase 2. As you know, in November of 2019, the city approved conceptual plans for Phase 1. They adopted a mitigated negative declaration, directed staff to prepare a new plan, and updated CEQA document. Now, this was a conceptual approval, and yet we're talking about conceptual approvals for Phase 2. Apparently, they don't exist. So, as stated in May 2020, the city received partial funding for Phase 2. In August 2020, the City Council amended its existing consulting agreements with the same consultants to include Phase 2 engineering and environmental services. And at that same time, and this is very important, staff isn't talking about this, the City Council action approved an amended design for the bridge, the Superior Bridge. This is a different design than you've been shown. So I'll go back to that. November 2020, the city submitted application with the Coastal Commission. That's incomplete. Coastal Commission assume they're watching, assume they're aware of what's going on. So what they're going to look at in terms of the scope, we are going to ask, because I'm assuming this is going to be appealed, which is for them to look at the whole thing, and there are, in my comments, the code sections which show how they are required to. Staff wants only a small portion to be looked at, but the code section says where there are dual jurisdictions, the city approves a coastal development permit in concept to the local coastal commission, and the coastal commission then issues a larger coastal development permit for the whole thing. So that's the code section in our LCP. So December 2020, civil engineers submitted a section 4F de minimis memorandum to Caltrans. That's saying no impacts for this project. December 22, zoning administrator approved the project. So what are the problems? What is the staff telling you? And this is the position that they're putting you in tonight, so I don't envy you. The public, the Coastal Commission was not told about Phase 2. That's the West Coast Highway Bridge. That didn't exist. That's just speculation. The city denied the existence until my comments on Phase 2, which were February of this year. And as many of you know, this is still speculative. We don't have enough information to do anything, blah, blah, blah. And of course, you have seen, and you have in your staff report, you have the bid application that was submitted prepared in 2018 and used repeatedly, which shows the engineering plans. They could have used this, they could use this today, but they chose not to use this. The federal government, state government, our city is not going to hire consultants under contracts if they don't say what they're going to do for the money they're charging. So this is totally ridiculous. The next problem that we have is the agencies and the public were not told about the land use restrictions. This is one of the things staff said they were going to talk about. Government facilities are not allowed on either side of the bridge lots. It's in the comments. Public agencies were not told about the impacts to the special tree. It's not in the CEQA document. It's not in anything. I raised it just like all of these things I raised. They were not raised until I raised them. The studies and procedures required to comply with city policies G1 and G3, that's special trees. They haven't been complied with. I don't know how you're going to act tonight. It requires city council action. But apparently it's nothing that's important. It's not in the CEQA document. There's no data to support the need for the project. You'll hear, and you've seen in the reports, that the public supposedly parks across the street in the existing parking lot to use the bridge, and that's to use the park, and that's why we need the bridge. Wrong. Go out there. I go by there every day. There's maybe one car that parks there. It's a metered parking. People park for free in the adjacent residential neighborhoods, and they walk, and they don't have to cross Superior Avenue. The people that are crossing Superior Avenue are coming from the beach side of Coast Highway. So it's not the people that park in that parking lot are going to the beach back and forth, 99%. So there is no documentation, no data in the record to support this claim, this assertion, which is the justification for the bridge. The public has expressed concerns about the project's views. We got a 25-foot maximum height retaining wall. That's about as high as this is right here. 4 6-footers, 4 of you guys standing on one another's shoulders. No impact, not potentially significant, no nothing. We have this bridge. You look at the pictures of the bridge, there's some people on a bicycle right at the intersection. You look at the scale of the bridge, no significant impact, no nothing. The only analysis that is looked at is the top of the park at Sunset View Park. None of the lower elevations, none of the travel lanes as coming down Superior Avenue, which is a coastal view road, is considered. This is not allowed under the findings you're supposed to make to preserve coastal views under the LCP. That would be a significant impact. And so you have to take into consideration the numerous comments you've gotten about view impacts in your decision tonight, because they count in the CEQA document in determining what a significant impact is. Public comments are counted. The project does not evaluate the impact on the marine industry. What's that all about? Well, we have boatyards that manufacture large yachts. They take them down by trailer in the middle of the night with police escort to the shipyards, and they launch them from the shipyards. Half the time they're disassembled. We have 25 feet roughly of clearance to fit a boat under on a trailer. Big sailboat, think of that, big yacht. McGregor yachts right up on Placentia, right around there. There's others, but they come from other areas. And by putting these bridges in, we're cutting the arteries, the jugglers, for these industries. And the general plan says we need to preserve the marine industries, and there is no consideration. So how you can approve something without a consideration to the marine industry from trailering these large yachts? You tell me how you're going to do it. But apparently staff says you don't need to worry about it. The project does not incorporate the bridge design approved by the City Council on August 25th. I told you this earlier, so if you were to go to your staff report on page 203, you have a picture, or you could put up your proposed slide that shows the picture of the design, and you'll see a stairway there. And if you go to the stairway on the proposed design, and if you go to the August 25th staff report, it is item D. It says approve a revision to the conceptual design related to the Superior Avenue pedestrian bridge structure. On that staff report, the last item is the proposed bridge. There it is. I've taken it from it. I'll pass it out to you. It does not have a stairway. This is crucial. Why does it not have a stairway? You're going to have to get a stairway up. As Andy knows, as your staff knows, and they're not telling you, what else is talked about in this staff report is the coordination between Phase 1 and Phase 2, and that stairway is where the bridge from Coast Highway comes across. And so the plan is to build these two, and they don't want to build a stairway that they're going to tear down. So the stairway is not there, and the city council instructed staff to use this bridge design. Just got a couple of more things. So I'll give this, and you guys can look at this.
Mr. Tanner, just please wrap it up.
Yeah, I will. The project is claimed to be a government facility. Government facilities aren't allowed on the land uses for the bridge on those two parcels, nor is the project a government facility to begin with. It's a public works project, but government facilities are required under the LCP. They're the only type of facility that's given a height variance, a height exception. So staff is claiming that this is a government facility to get the height exception. And the other standard for getting the height exception is that there is no environmental impact, which is why they don't want to talk about piecemealing, and they have to say this is less than significant somehow. Otherwise, this project is dead, and they're going to be held accountable for the waste of taxpayer money. So this project is inconsistent with the general plan, with the LCP. The CEQA document is inadequate, as well as the NEPA document that they've told you nothing about, but it was based on false information provided by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Okay, commissioners, any questions of the appellant? Seeing none, I will go to public comment. If you're watching remotely and want to provide comments, the phone number is 949-270-8165. First, I'll go to the public who is in the community room.
Commissioners, my name is Sharon Bowles. I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I've lived in Newport Crest for 24 years. I attended every Coastal Commission hearing on the park. This park is beautifully designed. It is so underutilized, it's pathetic. And it's underutilized because there is no parking. And when we attended, a group of us, all the Coastal Commission meetings, that was one of our really big concerns. The original plan called for parking on the park, and that was taken out by the Coastal Commission. We have been waiting since 2014 for the new parking parking area and a bridge, because those of us who live in this area know that Superior Avenue is quite dangerous. The speed limit is 40 miles an hour. Very few people go 40 miles an hour. Every time, and I use it every day, every time I am down at the bottom at the signal waiting, and I see a family with little children walking across the street, and I see a car flying down, I pray that they don't hit the pedestrians, because there's a right turn on red. I beg you to go ahead with this project. It is so needed. We at Newport Crest have actually had to pay extra monies for guards to keep people from parking in our complex. And I know Villa Balboa has an arm to keep people out, but I know they've had similar problems. This is so needed. We want to see children, we want to see adults using the park. And right now they can't because there is no parking. So please consider this. We in the neighborhood applaud it and we welcome it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Chair Wigand, members of the commission, my name again is Jim Mosier. First point I would want to make is that although this matter is coming to you on appeal tonight, and although I highly respect the judgment of our zoning administrator, I think as a general rule, a major city-initiated project of wide public interest should actually first come to the Planning Commission or come here directly, and the zoning administrator should use his discretion, which is in our code, to refer the matter to you rather than having a staff person sign off on it. Second, as to this business about the Coastal Commission staff claiming that they have jurisdiction over one end of the bridge and the city over the other, I kind of understand their point of view, but to me it contradicts actually the Coastal Act. Public Resources Code Section 30519A clearly states that after a local coastal program is certified, all new development is reviewed by that local agency, and it goes to the Coastal Commission only on review, only on appeal. They seem to have a point that it's tied to the park, but their logic carried to its logical extreme would mean any parcel in the city that ever had a coastal development permit issued by the Coastal Commission, they would retain forever jurisdiction over it for any new development on it. This clearly is something new, and I think the entire bridge should be reviewed as a package by the city and go to the Coastal Commission only on appeal, and I think that was the intention of the Coastal Act, so I have a little trouble with the coastal staff's opinion about that. As to our own staff, I want to point out a couple of discrepancies, little technical things about the resolution. First of all, on the very first page of the staff report, at the bottom, it says that you are, in addition to what else you're doing, you're approving in concept the portion that is in what the Coastal Commission says is their jurisdiction. Yet that's contradicted in the resolution on the first page of it, which is handwritten page 21. And it says that the resolution is covering only the part that is in the city's jurisdiction. I can find nothing in the resolution or the decision that says you are approving in concept the other part of the bridge. So perhaps that is missing from the resolution. And likewise, a minor technicality, but on handwritten page 31, which is recording your decision. The first item of that says, the Planning Commission of the City of Newport Beach hereby finds adopts. There's some kind of typo, something is missing there. The verb finds adopts, there is no such word. As the substance of the matter before you, I agree with the mayor of Newport Beach that a bridge has more visual impact than an underpass would be. So I do think that the project has visual impacts. I think it would have been helpful in the staff report to have shown what the retaining walls look like. I'm pleased that in the presentation, slide 16 shows these. We're asking for a deviation from the standard. The reason we have the standard is tall walls of this sort are a visual blight. So I'm looking at page 16. We're told it's a living wall. Is this checkerboard thing the final appearance of it, or is it going to change into something? And the stairway looks to me like kind of visual blight. Can something be done to soften the tall walls that are on the stairway, the big white object that is here? And this seems to be kind of an issue in this area because I know nearby residents have been concerned about the cogeneration plant at Hoag Hospital with its tall walls and trying to get those landscaped and less obtrusive. So I believe my time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other members of the public in this community room? Okay, we'll go to the phones. Just a reminder, that phone number is 949-270-8165. Oh, yes, one more public comment in the community, or in our chamber.
Good evening. I don't know how you guys do this. I'm Jim Miller, and I also worked to get a Coastal Commission's approval for this Sunset Ridge Park. And the reason why we did, I was coach baseball and football and soccer on the peninsula, and I'm a school teacher, for 30 years. And we needed a big park so the kids would have a place to play. Well, you all know that. That's why the city sets parks all over the city. This is our only park. We fought hard for it. Coastal Commission was opposed at one time. You probably know that. Dave Kiff walked up to me down by San Diego and said, Jim, we just lost our swing vote. Fortunately, they saw the light. I talked to them during the break. They continued it, and then eventually we got Sunset Ridge Park. Why is it important? This is from the LA Times. Traffic studies show that the intersection of PCH and Balboa Boulevard has 48,000 vehicles a day, 24,000 on the legs of Balboa and Superior, 600 pedestrians with 470 of them crossing PCH every day. 470. I didn't believe it when I read it, but it's in the LA Times, so I suspect there's some validity to it. 90 cyclists a day on average, and obviously a lot more during the summer, so it averages out during the winter, half of them crossing PCH. So it's a very dangerous intersection. We don't let our kids go. I coached down at the little park over here by the Ferris wheel. We had no other place to go, and parents are not going to let their kids cross that intersection. Parents cannot walk across it safely. It's very dangerous. Tony Petro almost got hit. Last time I was jogging up there, I almost got hit coming the other way. My own fault. But these cars just come flying by, and you see the PCH cars going by, so you think it's your turn to go. And I'm not been accused of being very stupid at times, but I almost got hit, which is, if I could get hit, anybody could be hit. Tony almost got hit. In any event, we think the city did a great job on the bridge and did a great job for 20 years trying to get Sunset Ridge Park, and we eventually got it. So I would urge that you recommend the bridge before Coastal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Okay, I'll go to the phone lines. Do we have we have one caller. Okay.
Hi, Commissioner Weigand, can you hear me?
Yes. If you want to mute your television, that
Hang
would...
on, hold on. Yeah, there, I got it now. My name is Dorothy Krause, and I live in Newport Crest. And I am going to urge you to vote no on this proposal. I spent several hours today reviewing the staff report, the appellant's concern, and there's a paper trail here that, for me, and I think through the presentation and the appellant comment to you tonight, that there's a paper trail here that says this is not one project, this is more than one project, and possibly 3 projects if you factor in the widening of Pacific Coast Highway at that intersection. I am all for safety for those kids that cross that street, and I walk that park every day and have since the middle of December, if not before, because I had backwards. I am in that park. I walk down the hill. I walk around the park. There's lots of people in the park. There's a whole weekend soccer team that's there. There's a lot of kids in the little playground there. I can't stand it. They're so cute. But I don't think this project is ready for prime time. It's not one project. And if you read the mitigated negative declaration addendum, the other project, quote unquote, is mentioned. And to me, it seems, I'm a little bit, I'm annoyed. I'm disappointed. I want the bridge, but now I don't because I feel like I haven't gotten the full story. I think it needs to go to the Coastal Commission. I support what Jim Mosier says. I read some of the other comments from the public regarding why aren't we looking at that whole traffic intersection instead of going down this path. For example, why not make right turn off of Superior to go north on PCH, no right turn. Same with coming down PCH, turning right up Superior. I think that this needs further evaluation. And I also don't believe that all of the park activity comes from the parking lot over by Sunset View Park. It's coming across, someone else said it comes across the street from Jack in the Box. And I'm wondering, how are people with baby strollers and pulling their soccer gear across PCH, how are they supposed to get up to the bridge? Are they supposed to climb up those stairs? What about people that are in walkers or wheelchairs that are crossing that street? A lot of people come from that side of town and they go over to the park. So again, I'm really disappointed, and I was hoping this would work, but I think there's more to this than what you're seeing, and I really hope that you recommend denial or deny this. I guess the buck stops with you, and I thank you so much. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other callers? Okay. So I guess I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Is that correct? Do I have that right on this appeal? Is that, am I slightly out of order? I want to make
Thank
sure.
you, Chair Weigand, members of the commission. Yolanda Summerhill with the City Attorney's Office. In this case, the city is actually the applicant. Typically, we'd be entitled to a rebuttal, but we're the applicant. And so if you have any additional questions, you can go ahead and close the hearing and then just ask of us what
I thought I read it right, but I just wanted to double check. Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Yeah, Commissioner Kleiman.
Mr. Campbell looks poised to maybe respond to some of those comments first, potentially.
I can. I did have one response, or at least one point I wanted to add. I did hear and listen to Mr. Mosier's discussion about permit jurisdiction, and then how it's phrased in the resolution here under item number 3 on handwritten, page 21. And I would actually like to make a correction to what the resolution indicates here. It indicates in the resolution that this is within the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction, at least a portion of it. Technically, it's not in their permit jurisdiction as a technical matter. The bridge abutment at Sunset Ridge Park is subject to their review because they issued a prior coastal development permit, and we, the city, cannot amend a Coastal Commission issued coastal development permit. We just can't do it. Our LCP says we cannot do this, and so this is one of the reasons we coordinated with Coastal Commission staff to see if they would view this as subsequent development that we would be within our permit jurisdiction, and they declined. They wanted to see that bridge abutment. That's why there is an application in front of the Coastal Commission. So, sorry for that long-winded answer, but what I'd like to do is indicate and change that this is subject to the Coastal Commission's review because of that prior permit application, but this is not within their permit jurisdiction. This is the entire project's within the city's permit jurisdiction. And that's really all I have, honestly. I did not hear any new information in Mr. Tanner's testimony that would cause me to question the analysis of the CEQA document or our analysis of the LCP. And so we stand by our recommendation to approve the project.
Can you just briefly go over the government facility definition and what falls under that category for exemption?
Certainly. Well, we do have a policy in our LCP that basically limits all structures to 35 feet in height. It's our shoreline height limitation policy. Within our implementation plan, there is some language that allows for governmental facilities, where necessary, to go above that. And we're actually not going above the 35 feet. So I don't believe that that really is an applicable standard. But this is technically a governmental facility. It is a public works project, so I agree with the statements in that regard. We do feel that it is eligible to go to 35 feet through the process that's before you today, and we feel comfortable with our recommendation.
Is government facility defined in the LCP, or is it defined in our code? Which one are we leaning on there?
I do not believe that the governmental facility is defined in any respect. It could be a park, a fire station, city hall, it could be a bridge, it could be anything.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Jim, staff, on page 17 of the handout that showed the cross-section of the retaining wall and it being discussed, and the appellant had a slide showing this white wall there. And it's very obvious by this that it's going to be stepped back and it's going to be a green landscaping going up the different terraces. So am I mistaken, or is that correct?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I think when you look at the presentation on page 16 of the presentation, that is a view simulation of the retaining wall as viewed from Coast Highway and the staircase down to Coast Highway. And so this is the wall that would require a deviation from our 8-foot wall standard. And we do intend to put landscaping there and to screen that wall. The section that you see on page 17 of the presentation is really the walls that are at the back of the project site that to expand the parking lot and to kind of create some additional passive viewing areas at Sunset View Park, which is sort of that little park area up adjacent to the cogen facility. And so this is the detail here. I believe these walls there's 3 walls. They do exceed the 8-foot height, if I'm correct in that assumption.
A little bit.
A little bit, but we've stepped them and landscaped them so they, from a visual standpoint, they really won't be a prominent issue, in our opinion.
Thank you. There's also there was discussion, and I heard it again tonight a couple times, about access to the Hogue property from the Sunset Park. Is that a walkway or a driveway?
At the moment, there is no plans to put
All right.
access from the park through to Hogue, and it's not part of this project design.
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Kleiman?
One of the other things that was in the packet that I haven't heard anything about is the scenic easement. If someone from staff can address that,
Sure.
that'd be great.
I think Andy has a little bit more background on that. Andy's been coordinating with Caltrans, but I'll let him elaborate.
Thank you. Very good question. The city has actually been coordinating with the Caltrans since March of 2019. When we acquired the property from Caltrans, it was a director's deed, and it came with a scenic easement that does not allow any structures. But since then, as I was stating, since March of 2019, Caltrans is agreeable to the idea of removing a portion of the scenic easement so that we can construct our abutment on Sunset Ridge Park.
So I guess my question really is more, what was the original intent of the scenic easement?
Oh, okay. I'm going to take a minute if you don't mind. Back in, I want to say in the 90s, before we acquired the property, the Sunset Ridge Park property, there were discussions of the city potentially constructing residential condos on that property. So prior to the Caltrans allowing us to purchase the property from them, they included a scenic easement so that it would prevent the city from ever constructing any condos per se. And the property was actually deeded over to the city with a restriction, and the land use at the time was deemed open space or for recreational purposes only, which is why the scenic easement is actually along the Coast Highway side, the southerly portion of the property line.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I just have a couple other follow-up questions, things that came up with various comments. You mentioned in your presentation, Chelsea, that there would be no changes to the existing crosswalks at grade. Is that?
That's correct. As a part of this project, which is the Superior Bridge, there are no proposed changes to crosswalks.
And so is there an existing crosswalk essentially directly below where this bridge would be located?
Yes.
So when people are kind of playing Frogger across the street, they're actually in a protected crosswalk?
Yes, there's a crosswalk
I
there.
mean, they're still, sounds like taking a bit of a risk, but, and then the other question I have is about the new parking and if those spaces would be metered.
They would be paid parking spaces, just as the 64-space parking lot is today.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Lowry.
Just one more quick question on that easement. So that easement was done by Caltrans, right? I might have missed it. It was done by Caltrans?
Yes, that is correct.
So they can reconvey at any time, so?
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
Thanks.
Any other commissioners? I have a couple questions. The special tree that was mentioned, does that need to go to council to approve to move based on their policy, or is that just something staff administratively does? Is that something that can be moved on?
Yeah, if I can answer that one also. I've actually already been working with the city's tree, city arborist, and in order to move that dedicated tree, or that special tree, it's a dedication tree for Louise Greeley. We would have to go to the Parks, Beaches, and PB&R Commission, to get that approved. It does not need city council approval.
And has there been already any discussion about the fact that it would live if you moved it?
Yes, I've actually been working with the city arborist already, and the intent is to relocate it, but if it doesn't survive, we would replace it with a new tree.
Gotcha. Let's see. This page 16 that shows the shows this retaining wall and staircase. Would you make an argument, staff, that that would be the location of the phase 2 where that bridge would connect from that staircase? Because there has been several comments related to ADA accessibility. So there's no, in my view, a ramp of sorts that gets to the parking structure unless you were to walk up Superior a significant amount to get to where the entrance is. Is that how somebody in a wheelchair or a stroller per se could get up to the parking if you were to go to the beach crossing?
Yes,
PCH?
with the completion of the Sunset Ridge, with the completion of the Superior Avenue Bridge project, the existing crosswalks will remain. So if you elect to not go up the existing sidewalk, you can still cross via the existing crosswalk.
But where would you get up to the parking with a wheeled access?
Just as how you would today with the existing parking lot, you would use the existing sidewalk along Superior and access off Superior.
But as right now, you can walk up the middle. So where you press the button to cross Superior, there's a pathway that walks up to the parking lot. From these site plans, I don't see it.
You are correct.
14, I don't see it.
There is an existing walkway today. That walkway will be replaced with a proposed staircase. Granted, a staircase is not ADA, but the sidewalk, the existing sidewalk along Superior, albeit it is on a steeper side, it is actually an ADA pathway.
So you would just have to walk. Is the entrance point where it is today the same as it is on page 14? Or is it moved further up the hill?
It's the same entrance.
Same entrance, okay. And staff, we're pretty much under the assumption that this is going to be appealed to the Coastal Commission. Is there any further due diligence that could be done on staff's end to try to work with Coastal in advance to prevent Coastal from appealing this project or denying this project? Are there any other ways to form some type of consensus without having this, be appealed in the future? Is this the process?
Chair Wagon, what I would say is that the appellant has indicated to us that he's going to appeal it regardless. We don't anticipate an appeal from the Coastal Commission themselves. And so, yes, there's a high likelihood it'll go to the Coastal Commission. Today as I sit here, there's really no opportunity. We're asking you to take action on this project tonight, so there wouldn't be an opportunity for us to do additional work, if you will. But if it is appealed, then there would be additional dialogue with Coastal Commission staff before they go to the Coastal Commission at their first step to see if there is a substantial issue. We believe that the record is got sufficient facts to support the project as being consistent with the local coastal program. And we would anticipate that the coastal staff would find no substantial issue, which would then just dispose of the appeal. Now, obviously, that's, the Coastal Commission staff might take, they might take a different viewpoint on that. And we would have an opportunity to have further dialogue with them during that process to address any issues that they would see.
If you were to guess, how many times has this been before the city council between the park and bridge discussion?
I've been with the city for about 16 years. I have to say, in my time, 7 or 8.
And in senses that the council supports this wholeheartedly, or was there opposition to it at some point, or?
I guess judging by their actions on November 2019, when they approved the conceptual design and adopted M&D, I believe they wholeheartedly support this project.
Unanimous?
Unanimous.
Okay, commissioners. Take it back to you guys.
Chair. And staff, I'm going to make a motion for, I guess it's approval, correct, of the, is it the revised conceptual design Superior Bridge?
Commissioner Kenning, I can make it easy on you, and if you'd like to just move the recommended action, and that might
All right.
simplify it. I think that there might be a couple little tweaks. I'll turn it over to.
Well, you can fill in the blanks, because I've gone through the findings and I agree with all of them. I think it's a, pardon the pun, but a superior bridge design and a superior concept over Superior Boulevard. And I think that, as a couple of people said, this is way overdue. And I think this is the time, if it's going to be appealed, why should we spend any more time on this? If my motion gets approved, move it on. You can fill in the details of the motion.
Mr. Kenning, I think just moving staff's recommendation is fine, and
Right.
what I would also ask is, I did kind of narrate a change to the resolution in terms of the jurisdiction, and that would be a change to Section 3 on the first page of the resolution. I don't have that language in front of you, but it's a very simple change, just to indicate, as I indicated in my testimony.
All right.
As well as the typographical, removal of find on handwritten 31.
Goes without saying. Mr. Mosier spotted it again. I think you put them in there just to see if he finds them. All right, that's my motion for approval.
I'll second that happily.
All right, I'll call for the vote.
The motion carries 5-0 with Chair Weigand abstaining.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a simple question? Why are you abstaining?
I don't think it's necessary, but yeah, I'll give you a reason.
Sure.
I think this is something that there's more to it than what it is. There are hidden discussions about this, and I'm not saying that this is a hiding from staff. I just don't think we as commissioners should be discussing something that's had 7 or 8 discussions at City Council and bringing us forward on something that I'm not comfortable with. The whole aspect of there's a discussion underneath on PCH widening. There's a bridge that is in phase 2 that hasn't really been discussed here. I think the appellant makes some decent arguments. I think the Coastal Commission will have a strong look at this, and there could be some challenges to it. But I get it. City Council likes this idea, but I'm not comfortable. We all had a discussion on short-term lodging where you all said that you didn't think you had enough discussion from City Council has been discussing it, and Planning Commission hasn't. And this is kind of a similar item where I think the council and staff have talked about this a lot, but we're only seeing this as an appeal, not as an actual agenda item. So I think the information was, while presented clearly from staff, I just feel that I was missing something, and I'm not opposed to it. My kids and I go to this park, and we walk that intersection, and it's terrible. And I worry about my kids crossing that, and I would love to see the bridge. I just don't want to see controversy with it, and I try to avoid it at all costs. So that's my position. So I appreciate you asking. Okay, all right, we'll move on to the next item, which is item 5. Do commissioners get a sense they need a restroom break, or shall we go? Okay, all right, let's bring it on to item 5. Friends of Newport Beach Animal Shelter, PA 2020-349. This is site location is says 111 Camelback, but I think that's a typo. Staff, do you want to give the correct site location for me?
Yes, the property address is 20282 Riverside Drive.
Perfect, thank you. My notes had an old date or address on here. So again, if you want to comment on this item, it's 949-270-8165. Staff, please proceed. Patrick, you're up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Patrick Akis with the Planning Division. The item before you is a conditional use permit to establish a new public animal shelter. The subject property, which is outlined in red, is located in the Santa Ana Heights specific plan. And you'll see the city limit in blue dashed line bordering Costa Mesa. Nearby landmarks include Santa Ana Country Club, Newport Beach Golf Club, and the I-73. Specifically, the property is located in the residential kennel district of the Santa Ana Heights specific plan. This district comprises 18 sites that are allowed to have a single-family residence in conjunction with a kennel business. The current animal shelter operates on a temporary basis, 2 doors to the left. The applicant, Friends of the Newport Beach Animal Shelter, or FONBUS, requests to demolish the existing residential kennel on site to construct a new public animal shelter for cats and dogs. FONBUS has raised over $2.5 million to cover all costs associated with the land acquisition and construction. After the project is constructed, FONBUS plans to donate the project to the city's Newport Beach Police Animal Control Division for operation. If approved, the shelter would be the first permanent one in the city. The Arcade District is intended for a neighborhood which, among other uses, includes single-family residences in conjunction with commercial kennel businesses. Importantly, the Commission can approve any use they find consistent with this designation. While the project would not provide a single-family residence, staff believes that it is consistent with the Arcade District. To elaborate on that point, it has the appearance of a home. It maintains operational characteristics commensurate with other residential kennels. It has a fewer number of dogs than other residential kennels, with a maximum of 29 dogs. Others are allowed up to 59 under the original historic permit from the County of Orange. The site would be sound attenuated and in compliance with the municipal code noise standards as certified in the professionally prepared acoustical analysis. Parking would be compliant, provided on site. It complies with standards such as setbacks, height. As a reminder, here are the conditional use permit findings. So the framing words: consistent, compatible, suitable, not detrimental. These would be the basis for the approval. Here's a picture showing the existing development. It is a residential kennel with non-conforming parking and non-conforming accessory structures in the rear yard. So kennel enclosures must be set back from the rear property line 25 feet, and existing conditions, they're almost right at the property line. Here's illustrations of the proposed project. Top is a elevation. Below is a 3D rendering. Importantly, Riverside Drive is a residential neighborhood. The architect has devised a building program and uses architectural treatments that honor just that. Here is a look at the site plan. To your left is Riverside Drive and the front of the property. Setbacks are honored, shown in blue. Parking in purple, up 4 spaces, one of which is a designated staff space in yellow. There's a meet and greet yard, dog play areas. At the center in white, you'll see the facility itself that has administrative offices, cat enclosures, and areas for animal care and food preparation. Again, looking to the rear of the site, providing that 25-foot setback for the kennel enclosures housing up to 29 dogs. Conditions of approval are part of the project, notably with substantial conformance with the approved plans attached in your report. Future uses would be subject to RK standards. This approval by no means changes the zoning. Any future uses would be subject to conditional use permits for residential kennels. There are limitations on the number of employees, hours, and animals. And signage would be provided for emergency contacts after hours. Staff believes this project would provide an important public infrastructure and public service in the form of a new animal shelter. And it also maintains high visual interests and architectural quality with the residences. Staff recommends the Commission find the project exempt from CEQA and adopt the resolution approving the subject conditional use permit. Staff did receive public comments in support of the project. Some were also in opposition, citing concerns over the residential integrity. I'm joined here tonight by Valerie Schomburg from the Animal Control Division, and we're available to answer questions. The applicant team, FOMBUS, led by President John Langford, is also here and prepared to make a brief presentation.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Yes, Commissioner Lowry.
Patrick, I don't want to open up a dog versus cat war here, but is there cats allowed here too? I had a couple questions of that, so they wanted to be, people said, oh, it'd be nice for an animal shelter, but are cats allowed to? It really general, actually that question got to, is it a general animal shelter or is it really just only for dogs and cats? I mean, if you get some kind of, reptiles and that kind of thing of like what type of, and maybe they might be able to answer that more, but just is it, now that the city's going to have, or may have, if this gets approved, their first full-time animal shelter, does that include all animals or just more dogs and cats and all that?
Thank you, Commissioners. So we've been running...
Officer Schomburg, if you want to just introduce us to yourself and then
for the record.
I'm
Officer Valerie Schomburg. I run animal control through the police department and also ran the animal shelter. We've been running the shelter for 5 years and we lease the space. So what we would do is do the same operation at the new place. Any animal that we pick up in animal control or the city finds comes to the animal shelter. We have dogs, cats, puppies, kittens. We bring in snakes, birds, all that stuff. Any animal that needs care and needs to be, we hold them at least 5 days to make sure we can find an owner, even on a snake, red-eared sliders, anything like that. Any animal we treat the same way when it comes in. Reptiles, birds, that kind of thing, we usually just hold it to 5 or 7 days because we don't have the equipment or the space or to care for them properly. So we will find them rescues, but mostly it's dogs and cats. I'd say about 60% of the animals we bring in are dogs. Most of them are returned to owner. Our numbers have been decreased a little this year because of COVID. People are home, the gardener shows up, the animal doesn't go missing a lot of times, so. Thank you. Yeah.
Usually dogs require separate kennels. Is that, I just see,
Correct.
And then cats or whatever, the other.
Exactly, you
Okay.
keep them separate. Right now where we're at, we have all the small dogs in with the cats,
Okay.
which is not really that great because a lot of cats get annoyed with barking.
Yeah.
So in this new facility, all the dogs would be in the back to prevent a lot of and then the cats would be a lot more happy.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Officer Schomburg, I just had one question. How long have you been working on this project?
Well, I've been working with the city for 19 years and have always wanted an animal shelter. I see that a lot of cities contract out, and the one place that you mostly contract out is the county, which they take in 14 cities of animals. And so a lot of the animals get caught up into this huge so many animals, and we're at our shelter. They each have an individual. We have great vets. They all get individual care. Some get different food because that's what they need. Probably about 6 years ago, we were contracting with the Orange County Humane Society, and I saw a lot of things. As animal control, we know a lot of the laws and a lot of the animal abuse stuff, and we witnessed a lot of that. And so at the time, Lieutenant Fischbacher, Tom Fischbacher, was my lieutenant, and I went to him and I said, our animals in the city need better care. People in the city love their animals, and I think we're small enough that we can have a small shelter, but we can have it forever, so that the people in the city who love their pets, if their pet goes missing, they call the shelter and they're at ease that if they can't pick it up tonight because we go home at 5, that they sleep good at night knowing that they can get their animal back in the morning. So
Great.
It's been a long project. So
Yeah, to show your excitement is an understatement, right?
Exactly.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any ex parte communications, starting with Commissioner Rosine?
None.
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 Only me discussing this great project with Officer Schomburg. Okay, I will move on to the applicant to give a presentation, please. And actually, that'll consist of opening the public comment, or public hearing.
Right, beware. Oh, good luck that time. I'm also joined by Tom Fischbacher, who's the chair of our facilities committee. So thank you, Mr. Chair and commissioners. My name is John Langford. I'm the president of Friends of Newport Beach Animal Shelter, Fawn Boss, as we colloquially go by. And I have the distinct honor to represent the thousands of individual donors across the city that have contributed their treasure and their time to this organization over the last 5 years. And we ordinarily would pack this room full of people and it would be filled in the overfill room, but because of the circumstances, we asked everyone to stay home tonight. So we have people watching from their screens at home, and just a few of us here to answer your questions. And, oh, I get to do this. Oh, and one of the cool things about being Fawn Boss is we have animal stuff in all of our presentations, which is really fun. So our board of directors and and I'll be brief, but it's a celebratory night for us. We've been working tirelessly for 5 years. We've raised $2.5 million. And the board of directors is not an honorary position. They're all very hardworking directors. Former Mayor, Newport Beach Mayor Jean Watt, 95 years young, has been working tirelessly on this, as she has for Friends of Oasis and Friends of the Newport Beach Public Library. This is kind of along those similar veins where those groups have raised money to build these public projects. Walt Howell is a commissioner on PBNR Commission. Robin Grant is on the Newport Beach Arts Commission. Evelyn Hart, former Newport Beach mayor herself. Eva Laban has been wonderful in the design, and the Laban family has gifted a huge amount of what we've raised. And Tom Fischbacher on the chairman of the facilities committee. And that's just us representing the thousands of people that have donated and the hundreds and hundreds of people that have joined as sustaining members of the Friends of Newport Beach Animal Shelter. We have an online presence, and over the last 5 years, we've tried to get the word out to all 85,000 residents of Newport Beach and beyond. We even have donors from outside the city that just love what we're doing. We've been on social media, we've been tweeting on Twitter, we've been posting on Facebook and Instagram, we've been written up on in Stew News, the Daily Pilot, the Newport Beach Independent. We go to every community event and table, so we're at the Pet Expo at the Orange County Fairgrounds, we've been at the Corona Del Mar Christmas Walk, we've done the, what else do we got? The Spirit Run, really just everything, because we know it's a community effort, and you can tell by how passionate Valerie Schomburg was, is that people that hear about this need, they respond in such a passionate way. So we've had lots of support from the citizenry, which it's just been an amazing show of support, and we didn't know we'd be able to raise these funds so quickly. And when the opportunity arose, we were able to close on this property in April. And now we've secured the final amount of funding for the construction of the project. So with your approval, that's what we'll be going forward doing. This is a quick quote from Evelyn Hart, and another opportunity to put a dog on screen. but she was basically talking about how, like the Friends of Oasis Senior Center, the Friends of the Library, this is the new opportunity now that the kids and the seniors are taken care of, we can take care of our dogs, and it's a feel-good thing for all of us. And I know that once this thing is built, we'll, every time we see dogs on the street, we'll feel like we did something for those owners and those dogs. If something happens, that they'll be treated, they'll be taken care of at the new animal shelter. And here's a quick example of one of our advertisements that was in the Oasis catalog, and we've had a lot of fun with that, following Bubbles, Officer Bubbles, along on her social media journey to become a Newport Beach police officer. And we had a couple of these slides in here that you've already seen, and we just really are appreciative of you hearing us today. And I want to give special mention also to the city staff that has worked really hard on it. Patrick's been wonderful, and Dave Kiff was an important part of this early on. Tim Stokes, Carol Jacobs. I'm sure I'm missing some people, but it's been a huge community effort, and we're just so excited that we're finally getting to this point. And we look forward to the big ribbon cutting with all the people filling the street, and we hope you're all there too. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I'll ask the applicant if they agree with the recommended conditions.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. And commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Ketting.
Yes, could you back up the slide just before this dog jumping up and down? There.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see a color elevation of this, I don't believe. Because I read a letter or two about consistency with a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, so these are some colored elevations that we asked our architect to put together. We held a community outreach event at this property last Saturday. So we wanted to have some big mock-ups for the residents, those 18 property owners on the street. We've called and emailed and sent them letters. We wanted to come and bring in, we wanted them to see these first and kind of get their ideas and all that. So this is an idea of what it could look like, and we're open to community feedback, your feedback as to what would best be adoptive to the street. But this just helped delineate roof and structure, single level. So the site plan is pretty much what we want, but the materials themselves, whether it's block or if it's siding, we're still in the developmental process for that.
Yeah, I guess what threw me off when I first saw something is the red roof. And then the split face block looks like it's natural, that's good. Maybe is the building plaster or block? It looks kind of like block here, but I can't tell. But the roof is what threw me. It didn't feel, it didn't feel like a neighborhood, residential neighborhood, that's all. If there was anything you could change, maybe I'm the only one, but that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our architect is here, Mark, and he originally designed it with the block construction because it was economical. We've since received additional donations to kind of cover the aesthetics of the front, so we could spend more money on the appearance. Even though the split face block was kind of in accordance with the street, there hasn't been a new build on the street in over 60 years. So this is, doing something nicer and different would be okay. And do you want to add anything, Mark?
Commissioner Ketting, do you want to have that architect
Maybe just
say anything?
describe what you're thinking on the roof. Come to the microphone, I assume.
Yeah, if you
don't mind, come to the microphone and then just 6 foot
Announce
distance
who you
for.
are.
The roof is a standing seam metal roof.
What's your name?
I'm Mark Dwyer. I'm the architect on the project.
Thank you.
I've been an architect for, 45 years or something. The roof is a standing seam design, which is typical nowadays in residential design. The bottom part is a wainscot idea with a split face block, and then above that is precision block. We're using a real light colored block with some different dark elements to make it so it's not so plain. And then the wrought iron gate or fence that's around that you see that's in the white there behind the people, that's for the dogs to be able to play in and to be viewed by people that come to maybe adopt a dog. And then on the right side behind the city emblem there is a dog play area that is made so that the dogs can't see out. So it'll keep them, you know, more quiet and better for their security too.
So you haven't determined the roof color yet?
No, we can change that. Red was just kind of an idea.
All right.
So we could use a different color.
And
the size and scale is to the residents in that area. The height of that roof is the same of all the roofs all the way along that whole block.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that would be used to kind of stand out so that somebody from the public who maybe has never lost their dog before and they're showing up to that street would have some visual?
Think of it that way?
Okay.
You know, I mean, I guess, I think if you're looking for this animal shelter and you come down the street, it's such a small street that you'll find it right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess on Commissioner Ketting's comments related to the color, this is our opportunity to, or I guess the city's only one opportunity to kind of have that say. If they don't like the red roof, speak now or forever hold your peace. But that could be adjusted here. I don't know if there's another opportunity to do that. So if Chair or Commissioner
yeah,
Ketting
we can
wants
adjust
to,
that right up to the point where we go and order the material.
yeah, okay. All right, we'll, I guess, have some discussion about that soon.
Okay. Anything else?
Great. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'll take public comment now. And again, if you're watching remotely, please call 949-270-8165, and I'll go to the room here and the chambers for public comment.
Chair Wigand, Jim Mosier again. Even I think this is an extremely small point, but on the first page of the resolution, handwritten page 17, the last paragraph, item 6, it says a public hearing was held on March 4th, 2021. I think the planner intended, for consistency with the other resolutions that you have been adopting in recent months, to say a telephonic public hearing was held on March 4th. Otherwise, the end of the sentence saying it's due to COVID would make no sense.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Any other comments in the room? Okay, I'll go to the phone. We have 3 callers. Remember to mute your television when you call in. Okay, you're on. Hello? Caller, you're on. Please mute your television.
I'm sorry?
Caller, you're up. Please mute your television.
Okay. I've muted it.
Okay. You have...
Okay. Am I live here?
Yes, sir. You're ready to go.
All right. Thank you. My name is Dave. Yeah, Dave Steve. I live on Orchard Drive at the end, down here towards the golf course. Currently, my wife and I have lived here for about 27 years. We've raised our family here. Prior to that, I was born and raised on this street. We moved back here to take care of my parents. I really appreciate the work of Valerie and Dave Kiff. I've had to actually take advantage of the situation when my mother-in-law's dogs got loose. But I would have to say, having been here for quite a while, the biggest complaint that myself and most of my neighbors have is the parking. We do not feel that there's adequate parking for a facility like this. Right now, our Orchard Drive Street is inundated with vehicles that operate out of the kennels there, be they employees or volunteers or patrons. That's really inundated on our street. Again, the parking, I don't think is adequate, and we need to address that. Dog walkers are another problem. Back in 2015, Dave Kiff contacted me in regards to the temporary kennel they had there, and Valerie gave me some notes on it. It sounded really good at the time. They assured me at that time that adopters that came into that area would not be walking the dogs on Orchard. Shortly after it opened up, the adopters, I don't think, walked on Orchard, but we've got volunteer dog walkers all day long, up and down the street. My son got a puppy about a year and a half ago, and the first thing his vet said when he got that dog was, don't take it on the street until you're sure it's had all of its shots. He was citing the excrement and the urine and stuff that is prevalent up and down our whole street. With that being said, I'm also concerned about a health hazard. A lot of the dogs come down to the end of the street here to use the park. We've had some of the kennels use that for lessons, for introducing dogs to prospective owners. I've had them do it in the middle of the street, giving lessons for a half hour, 45 minutes, down in the cul-de-sac here. And that adds to the traffic and the leavings that the dogs leave behind. I'm a dog person. I love dogs. But I just don't think this is the proper place for it. It's impacted our neighborhood quite a bit. And possibly one consideration you might have is using that property to make a dog park for the kennels.
Thank you very
or maybe
much.
parking for the kennel.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Next caller, please. Okay, you're on.
Yes, my name is Louise Lee. I live on Orchard Drive, and I am a little bit closer to Riverside Drive. And my concern, I would have to concur with everything that Dave said. I have two standard poodles, and there are times when the dog walkers are out there. This is a real problem because, as he said, sometimes the dogs aren't well trained. They can be, anyway, it is a problem. Traffic is the parking is a serious problem. And my other concern that I have is not only is the location of where it's going to be put in, is that on the very corner of Riverside and Orchard, there is supposedly a piece of property that's very large that is being sold to a place called for dog training. Sit means sit. And I have a concern that all of a sudden we're going to have a larger kennel there. Now we're going to have a training site, which will be even more, will impact our parking even more than it is at this particular time. And I would have to concur with everything that Dave said as far as the dog walkers and just the parking and too many dogs. You know, at night, whenever there's an enormous amount of noise that comes from all the different dogs that are there. And I don't have a problem with the shelter wanting to improve their facility, but I have a problem with how big it's going to be and whether you're going to make room for the parking. And I like this idea of also having maybe a little dog park for the kennel for the dogs that are there. And so but I have a concern. I don't know whether anyone in the city has addressed this other piece of property that's supposedly being sold to, it's a training facility. And it's right there on the corner of Orchard and Riverside. I'd really like to know more about that too.
Thank you. Next caller. Okay, you're on.
Hello, my name is Jeff Schneiderwind. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this proposed resolution and plan. I live at 20281 Klein Drive, immediately behind the property. I'm the property right behind the proposed shelter location. I've submitted detailed written comments, which I hope you had time to study. I'd like to touch on the highlights here. It's absolutely the wrong place for this project. It's in the middle of a residential area that's already struggling to cope with, as my other neighbors mentioned, the increased traffic from the changes that have happened recently on Riverside Drive, which is the Kennel Street, not to mention having to deal with the airport. A permanent city shelter should be away from residences, and as they tend to be in most cities. What about a site near the airport or near City Hall at Newport Center or something like that? The proposed resolution and report omits important facts and mischaracterize the surrounding neighborhood as well as Riverside Drive itself. These facts and mischaracterizations make it impossible to assess the project accurately as presented. We've lived here for 28 years. While there are a number of businesses in the neighborhood when it was unincorporated, when the county was in charge, it's become almost completely residential except for Riverside Drive and the nursery on the opposite side of Riverside Drive from us on Orchard, it's on Orchard Drive. Borders the opposite side of Riverside. There is one landscaping business on Klein Drive still, but the proposal refers to our entire side of Riverside Drive to the southeast, as a commercial nursery overlay and says we have horticultural structures that will buffer sound from the dogs. There are no such structures anywhere on Klein Drive. There are no nurseries bordering the Riverside Drive kennels. There are 6 residential houses, period. The proposal also omits crucial background about the existing Riverside Drive kennels. It describes them as businesses with employees and customers coming and going. But until the past few years, most of them were actually breeders with no employees outside their family and very few customers. The huge increase in dog walking and daycare services on the street has created noise and traffic problems, as my neighbors mentioned. They've already covered that. When we do hear barking these days, honestly, we usually hear them from the current shelter location 2 doors down from the proposed site. What will the noise be like once they're right over our back wall? Residential kennel owners live on the site, so this street was supposed to be residential kennels. And living on the site, they can respond to late night barking or howling jags. They tend to stay on top of the noise. This proposed facility will not be staffed at night. Newport's growing. While a 29-space shelter might be sufficient for now, what happens when the need increases? Will the city try to squeeze more dogs in or try to expand the footprint of the shelter? This project will create an even greater strain on our neighborhood than it faces now. I urge you to check this proposal and advise Animal Control and Fawn Best a more appropriate site. This property should remain a residential kennel or become a plain residence, not a city facility. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Okay, you're on.
Hi, this is Julie Schneiderwind. My husband just spoke. But I just wanted to reiterate that what he said, this is a residential neighborhood, and there is no property that is more impacted by a shelter than us. We back up directly to the property. And I know it's expeditious and convenient to, write my home off as a nursery overlay zone. But I've lived here for 28 years, raised my family here. And I'm just boggled that my city wants to plant a dog pound in my backyard. And obviously the planning for this has been going on for quite some time, and the property has already been purchased. But nobody has knocked on my door. The property that backed up to this property, where I have an art studio in my backyard, I have a garden, I entertain people in my backyard. that you never knocked on my door to ask, hey, how do you feel about a dog pound right up against your fence? I mean, I've invested in this community. I've raised my family here. And it's astounding to me that all the planning and supposedly this outreach thing last Saturday, we only found out about this, about a letter from the Planning Commission on Saturday. It's just amazing. I mean, I urge you to find a different location for your shelter. This is essentially a residential neighborhood. I worry about the traffic, the noise, my property value. I mean, I'm just incredibly upset about this whole thing. So I urge you to reconsider the placement of a shelter in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And I would ask Langford and Kiff and Stokes and all these people involved in this, if somebody was going to put a dog pound in your backyard, butt up against your property, how would you feel about that? I had so much more to say, but I just want to keep this really short. I'm just blown away by this whole plan and the lack of communication with my own community and my city, that you would drop this in my backyard. Honestly, how do you think I can handle 29 dogs in my backyard? That's crazy. This is a crazy plan. I urge you to shelve it or find a different place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Okay, that's it. All right, does the applicant wish to respond to any of the comments?
Might as well. So I think Patrick mentioned it earlier, but the existing kennel that we purchased is a legal non-conforming setup, and they have kennels right up against the back wall. And what we're doing is bring everything up to 2021 code. So we are going to have a setback, which I think one other person on the street has, and we have that off-street parking. And we're going to have an enclosed, kennel structure. So it's actually going to be much better for the callers that have been calling. They may not realize that yet, but they will. Their quality of life will increase instead of decrease. And we'll continue to reach out to the community. We're still going to elicit feedback on our design, colors and all that. Our group is a large group of individuals. And so we're still batting around those ideas. So we'd urge them to get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear more about their ideas. And we're an open channel of communication. So thank you.
Thank you. And staff, do you have any comments for the record?
Yes, that is correct. So the conditions proposed would actually enhance the placement of the kennel structure. So as John mentioned, right now they're right up against the property line. Proposed by the project, they would be set back 25 feet from the property line, so much improved. And there is an existing residential kennel at the site right now. So it's not like it is introducing animals newly to the site.
And the 300-foot posting requirement or mailing requirement was done on which date?
In compliance with the Brown Act, the project is noticed at least 10 days before. We do have a practice of noticing a few days in advance, so this was a few weeks ago.
It was noticed to anyone in the radius of 300 feet from the property?
Exactly, excluding intervening rights of ways.
Oh, so the folks behind were notified 10 days ago?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Before I do that, yes, sir.
One of the main reasons we built this designed it out of block is for sound attenuation. We have sound attenuation walls all the way up and down both side property lines and across the back. And then all the kennels themselves are enclosed in concrete block, so the sound won't penetrate that. It stays much better inside that. We even had a sound attenuation study done, and that sound attenuation study is in compliance with the zoning code of Newport Beach.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'll close it. Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Could I ask the architect another question? Yeah, I didn't see the details. I assume, since this is predominantly indoor, it's heated and air conditioned?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I will close the public. No, Commissioner Kleiman.
One more question for the applicant. Would the applicant be open to a one-year review if that were something that the Planning Commission wanted to do, just to give residents an opportunity to, so that they're aware that, 1 year after you begin operating, that if there's any issues with parking or any of the things that have been called in about, that those things would be discussed?
That's a good question. So we will no longer be the owners of this property at that time, because we're going to be gifting the property to the city of Newport Beach. So it would essentially just be handcuffing the city itself on what they can be doing with their own property.
Yolanda, you want to weigh in on that?
I was just going to say that I'm sure the city would be happy to respond to residents' complaints and making sure that those issues are responded to appropriately.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, Officer Schomburg, I see you chomping there at the bit. I want to give you an opportunity.
Kind of clarify, there's 13 commercial kennels on the street. 4 of them are 29 dogs and less. The rest are all 59. On either side of us right now, both kennels have 59 dogs. We go home at 5 o'clock. We lock it down. We do have someone right now that lives there. We do ask the public, if you hear any of our dogs barking, we want to know about it. We never get anyone calling and complaining at all. So we are just trying to keep the numbers down for the area that we're in, and just so many other, we only have 2 volunteers a day that come. We do not do dog training. We don't do any of that stuff on the street. We don't run the dogs off leash. There are there's a bunch of places on the street that do a lot of dog walking. I just wanted to kind of clarify that we're just a real small operation.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Officer Schomburg, you are a staff member, so I can still continue to ask questions after closing the public hearing. There were some comments related to that as far as parking and dog walkers. Maybe staff could address that, or Officer Schomburg. I want to just emphasize that what you, I think, were kind of alluding to there, that dog walkers aren't necessarily shelter dog walkers. They're other tenants that are on the property. And then as far as parking, there's 4 spots. What's there right now? How many spots? At your
Property we're right now, we have 3 spots.
You have 3 spots.
Right.
So you'll
One
be
animal control truck that parks there, and then we have the volunteers that park there.
Gotcha. So you'll have 4 now, and one is dedicated
For
to
handicap, so we won't be able to park there.
But and then what about for you when your truck is there? Or your
There is a
colleagues?
spot there's a tandem one in front that our animal control truck would park there.
Gotcha.
So we wouldn't be on the street.
Gotcha. And then as far as those that park there in the area, parking isn't really an issue with the operation that you have. It's parking's more of an issue with the other drop-offs and pickups and, all the activity that occurs on that street as is, correct?
Correct. Before COVID, we were open 6 days a week to the public, 11 to 4. When COVID hit, all shelters closed. It's by appointment only. So we even took that up 1 notch. We have people look online for the animal that they're interested in. They fill out an application, and when they're approved, then we make an appointment. We never have overlap. If someone wants to come buy a dog license or reclaim their pet, we do make appointments. We may have only 2 people that come a day to the shelter. We really try to keep down on the traffic. I know all the drop-offs for the boarding places, from 7:30 in the morning till 7 at night, there's cars coming and going, dropping off dogs for boarding and training. But we just really tried to, I think moving forward, when a lot of the shelters start maybe opening, we're still going to do mostly by appointment only. It's worked really well for us. It keeps down on people who are just kind of bored and just want to come play with the animals, which can generate a lot more traffic and noise. So we like the appointment only. It's working great.
Great, thank you. And then Patrick or Jim, just one question about the future of the area. There was some kind of discussion about so many of these and what can we handle, the quality of life. What opportunity would the city have to start either creating that to be a less area for this type of behavior? So over time, as property sells, it no longer has the ability to keep that zoning. It has to just conform to residential. What opportunity would that discussion come at in the process?
Good questions there. In reference to the property that was mentioned during the testimony, that's a private transaction. I'm not aware of anyone filing for the properties along Orchard. There's like several properties that face Orchard that are in the same zoning district, but we have no active application for anyone to do a kennel. I'm not sure what they were suggesting would be a kennel, and I'm not sure it would actually be permitted use. And so at the end of the day, if they were looking for some sort of boarding facility, training facility, it would likely require a conditional use permit, would probably be coming before this body. So in that respect, for that facility, if there is a future application, then the Planning Commission can evaluate whether it would be compatible with the area. In terms of turning over of the properties on the street, I can't remember, there's 13, I believe, that have use permits for commercial kennel operations, and those use permits run with the land, and so they would go to the new owner. Now, if a new owner chose not to operate that kennel and abandon that permit, then we might actually see a diminishment of kennels over time. But they would have the right to continue to operate the kennels, and so what the city could do is just evaluate on a complaint basis if there's anybody who's in non-compliance with their use permits, and then we can obviously bring them into the fold, if you will, and enforce that permit conditions to help alleviate any nuisances. We do have regulations on the books about barking dogs, and we do enforce that, and so that's another tool that the city has to address nuisance issues.
Great, thank you. All right, any Commissioner further discussion? Yeah, Commissioner Elmore.
I think that this project complies. I think that it's a benefit to the street. I like the fact that there are setbacks. I like the fact that there's sound restraint walls. I think there's a 30% increase in parking. So the net, I think all the way around is a benefit. I believe the operator will do a sufficient job. So I would like to make a motion to approve this item, PA 2020-349.
Great.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you.
And real quick, in regards to the roof color, I think I'm not going to necessarily offer up a condition unless Commissioner Kedding thinks it's necessary. But I think from just an aesthetic perspective, I think it's nice to take a look at the neighborhood and keep consistent with the demeanor of the street and the neighborhood. So take that into consideration.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations. I'm excited for you guys. Okay, we'll move on to the next item unless commissioners need a rest. I'm seeing none. Okay, I'll move to item number 6, the Bethel and Ridge Subdivision and Residence Amendment, PA 2019-085. Site location is 365 Violito Sound. That's units 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you, again, want to comment on this item, it's 949-270-8165. Staff, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Wygan, and thank you to the Commission for being here tonight. My name is David Lee from the Planning Division. Pull up the PowerPoint. Thank you. I'm presenting the Bethel and Ridge Subdivision and Residence Appeal Amendment. It's a tentative parcel map and coastal development permit at 365 Violito Sud. Here's a picture of the project site. You see in red. It's located on Lido Isle. The project site is designated as a multiple residential site, RM. There's an existing 4-unit residence that's on the site, and the lot area is 6,300 square feet. Just an additional image of the project site. As you can see, it's close to the bay. It's actually separated from the bay with a small boardwalk and small sandy beach. I just want to give some background and context of why the project is here tonight and how it's gotten here. The original project was reviewed and approved by the zoning administrator on September 26, 2019. The original project was for this 70-foot wide lot, which has the existing fourplex on it in orange. And simply the project was a request to demolish this fourplex and to subdivide the lot into two 35-foot wide lots. I just want to make it clear that at this time there was no proposed residences to replace that fourplex. It was simply to demolish the structure and to subdivide the lot. The applicant was going to come in a later time and apply separately for that under a different permit. The project was subsequently appealed by the Coastal Commission on October 30th, 2019. Some reasons that were cited by the Coastal Commission was that since there was no proposed project to replace the 4-unit residence, there was a potential in reduction of density. There also was issues with the methodology for the coastal hazards report and how the sea level rise was determined. So since then, the applicant has worked diligently with the Coastal Commission. They have now provided proposed plans for the new residences, which show that each lot includes a single-family residence and a junior accessory dwelling unit, and therefore there would be no reduction in density, as there's going to be a total of 4 units over 2 lots. They've also updated the coastal hazards report to use the Coastal Commission adopted scenario for sea level rise, and concluding that the project is safe from coastal hazards for the next 75 years. Just want to do a quick rundown of the residences. As you can see side by side, this is what they would look like. 361 is on the top and 365 is on the bottom. There's a required 4-foot front setback, and the project is providing 5 feet. There are 3 feet side setbacks. As you can see in the middle, there's going to be now a 6-foot opening between the properties, whereas the existing residence is just over the property line. And there is no required rear setback. I mentioned previously that there's a junior ADU. This is the second floor plan. As you can see, there's a living area for each JADU with a exclusive stair that goes into the upstairs unit. There's a kitchen and bathroom as well. It's just some front elevations to show the scale of the house next to each other. 365's on the left and 361's on the right. They're both done by the same architect, and they have very similar designs, as you can see. The height of the structure is 24 feet. And here is a side elevation, again, 24 feet high. And as you can see, there is an exterior staircase for the JADU on the left side of the house. This is just one out of 2, but as I said before, they're very similar looking. Just quick development standards, just showing compliance with the floor area, setbacks, parking, height, and the floor area for the JADU. They all comply, both residences. Just want to make a point that the JADU does not require additional parking. The maximum height is 33 feet for this zone, and they're proposing 24 feet, which is well under the maximum. Coastal hazards, I discussed before, it's separated by a boardwalk and small sandy beach. Under extreme conditions, the future bay water is projected at 14.4 feet NAVD 88. Just some additional statistics, but the house is going to be waterproofed up to that number to protect it from the hazards. Staff has made all the required findings. Tentative parcel map is the subdividing 2 lots that are regular in shape with adequate utilities. The coastal development permit, the houses comply with the implementation plan. It is safe from hazards and does not have any impact to the views and access in the surrounding area. Staff has also made all the required findings for Title 19 and Title 21 deviations. Therefore, staff is recommending to conduct a public hearing, find the project exempt from CEQA, and approve PA 2019-085, which includes the CDP and the tentative parcel map. Next steps, if this action is taken, the city appeal period will go on and expire on March 18th, and it would now enter after that additional Coastal Commission appeal period, which is 10 business days. If you have additional questions, I'm available. Shauna Schaffner from CAA Planning is the applicant, and she is on the line. I believe she has a presentation when you're ready for it.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any question of staff? Commissioners, any ex parte communications, starting with Commissioner Rosine?
None.
None.
None for me.
None for me.
Nope. All right, and I'll open the public hearing. And Ms. Schaffner, do you want to make a presentation, please?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I am Shauna Schaffner, Chief Executive Officer of CAA Planning, representing the applicants for the CDP amendment. So good evening, Chair Weigand, members of the Planning Commission. Before I get started, I would like to thank David Lee, who has worked very closely with us for the past several years, and we really appreciate his diligent efforts. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background here. As Mr. Lee summarized, we submitted a CDP application for the demolition and lot subdivision to the city in May of 2019, and the zoning administrator approved that CDP in September of 2019. The CDP was subsequently appealed by the Coastal Commission, and we spent the majority of 2020 working with coastal staff to address the issues raised in the appeal. These generally related to details of sea level rise, waterproofing and adaptability measures for the future units, and also the density of the residential development. Once we submitted all of our updated information to coastal staff, they directed us to amend the CDP and come to the Planning Commission for a hearing. So that's why we are here tonight. Next slide, please. Here is an aerial. If we can go to the, thank you, next slide. And apologies for these transitions. I'm not sure why it's going so slow. Perfect. Okay, so we'll stop here. The existing development. The lot was subdivided originally in the 1920s. And then it was subsequently divided again to add property from the north and the south. So we had an original subdivision, and then we had subsequent changes that increased the size of the lot. Then in the 1940s, a fourplex was constructed, and this was, of course, pre-Coastal Act. The property consists of two larger units in the fourplex, which are approximately 1,900 square feet and 1,500 square feet, and two smaller units of approximately 500 square feet and 600 square feet. Next slide, please. The proposed development, as staff has mentioned, is the single lot subdivision, where we do require relief from the implementation plan standards related to the minimum lot size, demolition of the existing structure, and construction of the two residences, each with a junior accessory dwelling unit. So there won't be any reduction in the residential densities. And as staff noted, the project complies with all development standards for the new construction related to height, area, setbacks, parking, et cetera. Next slide, please. So sea level rise was one of our biggest issues with coastal staff. And this is because the city's methodology for determining future risk from sea level rise is different from that of the coastal commissions. So we've updated our coastal hazards analysis to rely on the Coastal Commission's preferred scenario, which is called the medium high risk aversion high emissions scenario. And this would predict a ultimate sea level rise to 14.4 feet in the year 2100. So in the approximately 75-year time frame, we would be planning for 14.4 feet. The finished floor here is 12.8, and we would be introducing adaptability measures to waterproof the structure up to that 14.4. So this, far exceeds the city's adopted sea level rise scenarios, but it was necessary for us to do this to satisfy Coastal Commission staff. Next slide, please. And then we do have some adaptation strategies which could be implemented, including, like I said, waterproofing the exterior to 14.4, introducing sandbags and visqueen at the openings when necessary. And there is no reliance of this property on any shoreline protective devices. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is 361. You've already seen it. Again, height of 24 feet and finished floor of 12.8. The residence is approximately 3,000 square feet with a JADU at 479. Next slide, please. And here we have 365 Violito sued. The residence is, again, just over 3,000 square feet with a JADU of 494 square feet. Next slide, please. And here are the two junior accessory dwelling units. Each is a one-bedroom unit. It has a separate living area, a kitchen, a bathroom, and the access is from an exterior set of stairs. So you don't have to go through the primary residence to get into the JADUs. Next slide, please. Okay, so to summarize, the issues raised in the Coastal Commission appeal have been addressed through the updated sea level rise analysis and the sea level rise adaptability measures, the preparation of plans for the residential units, showing the protection of 14.4 feet, and also demonstrating that we wouldn't be reducing the residential density. So these are all of the ways that we've addressed the appeal. We've worked with city staff and coastal staff in identifying the procedure where we've brought this here to you tonight as an amended CDP. And coastal staff have reviewed the staff report and they've concurred that these changes in the amended CDP resolve their concerns raised in the appeal. Next slide, please. So we request that the Planning Commission approve the amended CDP consistent with the staff recommendation. We thank you very much for your time tonight, and our project team is available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Schaffner. Any questions of the applicant? Okay. Commission will take public comment on this item. If you're watching, the phone number is 949-270-8165. I will start in our council chambers for comment.
Chair Wigand, members of the commission, Jim Mosher once more. I have 3 comments on this item. The first one is about the procedural posture of this application, which I think is quite unusual. And the first time it's actually happened since the city has had a certified LCP. And I think it's correctly described on page 5 of the staff report, but then incorrectly described in the resolution itself. So that's why I wanted to make a point of this. As you may or may not know, when an appeal goes to the Coastal Commission normally holds 2 hearings. The first one is called a substantial issue hearing. And if the commissioners find substantial issue, then they go on to hear a regular hearing on that item at which they can approve a modified project. And that's normally what one would have expected would have happened in this case. So I was puzzled that it did not, and it was coming back to the city, supposedly at the direction of the Coastal Commission staff. The procedure is described on page 5 of the staff report under Coastal Commission appeal. If the appeal is made by the Coastal Commissioners themselves, when the city hears that they have found substantial issue, not the Coastal Commission staff, but our Community Development Director has the authority to ask the next appeal body in the city to reconsider the application. And if, in this case, if you approve a modified project that extinguishes the Coastal Commissioner's appeal, so they would have to reappeal your approval of a modified project if you approved a modified project. This is misstated on page 120 of the staff report, which makes it sound like the Coastal Commission staff somehow directed it to you. It was actually our director who did that, and that he's the only person who can do that under the code. And then it says if a revised project is approved, this is paragraph 6 on page 20, the Coastal Commission will have the ability to withdraw the appeal to the project. That's not correct. It's automatically extinguishes their appeal. So they would have to appeal it all over again. So I'm not sure why it's correct in the staff report and then incorrectly explained in the resolution. Another thing that I think is misleading in the resolution is on handwritten page 28. if I can find it here. For you to approve the modified application for the coastal development permit, finding R requires you to find that it conforms to all applicable sections of the Certified Local Coastal Program. It's mentioning here it's very confusing. Fact 2. First, it's saying you need relief from the implementation plan, and then it's saying that you can revert to the smaller lot size, that's allowed in that section. Actually, that section says nothing about that. And the Title 21 is famously missing the footnote to the development standards that says you can revert to a previous lot size. That's in Title 20, it's not in Title 21. So it's not really true that this is something allowed by that section about relief. It's a deviation, and you need to make the findings for the deviation. And then I think I ran over the time, but I had one further comment, as I did this afternoon, go back to review the video of the substantial issue hearing held on December 12th, 2019. I noticed that the Coastal Commission staff said that that the applicant at that time did not contest the finding of substantial issue. However, I noticed in the correspondence that the City of Newport Beach, the deputy director, had sent a letter objecting to the finding of substantial issue and defending the zoning administrator's approval. My comment I want to make is I find that a little bit, I don't know if that's still going on, I find that a little bit unseemly for the city staff to be going to bat for a private applicant. And to me, that kind of is the basis for the feeling of some in the public that the staff has a pro-applicant bias.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher. Appreciate it. Okay, any other public comment in the room? Okay, I'll move to the phone. There's one caller, please. Remember to mute your telephone. I'm sorry, mute your TV. You're on.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Charles Klob. In many areas, the Coastal Commission and HCD are at cross purposes. The reduction in density on these two properties may well be approved by Coastal Commission with the addition of the JADU, but can staff guarantee that HCD won't find this a reduction in density and require us to make those units up somewhere else? Secondly, the RENA allocation for the next cycle would hope to include these units, if they are usable, in the low to very low income category. Can staff guarantee that these units will be in the low to very low income category for the next RENA cycle? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other callers? Okay, none. To avoid any potential that's going down the wrong path, I wanted Mr. Mosher to get an opportunity to speak a little bit on those items so that you could address them. And Mr. Klob, sounds like he brought up some key points. So if you could just clear the air on some of that stuff.
Sure. Deputy Director Jim Campbell, I appreciate the opportunity to respond. Mr. Moser's characterization of the procedure by which this got here, yes, this is the first time this procedure has actually been invoked. And I believe he actually characterized it pretty accurately. So this project was appealed to the Coastal Commission, appealed by two coastal commissioners, and there's a very specific provision where the Director of Community Development then can refer it to the local appellate body for addressing the concerns. And if we amend the project, then he's right. The original appeal becomes moot, and then obviously this is a new final action on an amended permit, then the Coastal Commission could appeal this again. And I think maybe the direction from coastal staff may have been mischaracterized and maybe not properly described, but Coastal staff reviewed this entire project and suggested, if you will, they didn't direct it per se, but they suggested that they come right back to the commission with an amended project here locally through this procedure. So we feel we followed their direction. The deviations from development standards on lot size and acreage is an interesting, it's a complicated scenario, but our current zoning code, at least for several years now, we've been allowed to deviate from the minimum lot sizes as long as we don't go any smaller than what the prior subdivision was. And that was in our zoning code, but unfortunately it didn't make it into the local coastal program. And now we have subsequently done an amendment here locally, and it's pending at the Coastal Commission to add that same footnote in so that you wouldn't have to deviate from the standards the way that we're doing tonight. But we are tonight asking that you do the coastal development permit that has additional findings in it to deviate. In essence, it's a mini variance, if you will. And we feel all those findings can be met, and those are described in your resolution here tonight. So it is a little complicated. The two codes are separate right now, but they will be hopefully consistent with one another once the Coastal Commission reviews our pending amendment. And then once they certify that, then this won't be that variance process in the coastal development permit, but we will actually be able to deviate in the future, but again, as long as they're not smaller than the original subdivision, which has been our policy for quite a number of years now. The third issue on substantial issue, yes, I did write a letter to the Coastal Commission suggesting that there was no substantial issue that should be made, and that was at least my thoughts. When I write a letter like that to the Coastal Commission, I'm not an advocate for the project, but I am defending what the city's process was. We felt that the process was correct and that we made all the right findings under the LCP, and I felt it was appropriate to send that letter to let the Commission know that we did our job. We looked at this case very carefully. We felt that it was consistent, and we still do feel that that project originally was consistent with the local coastal program. They obviously took issue with that and found it to be a substantial issue. But again, that's history. But now you may understand why I might send a letter like that to the Coastal Commission. I am not an advocate for a project. Moving to Mr. Klove's comments, I do believe these ADUs we would take credit for these ADUs under the new RENA cycle as long as they're not occupied by, I believe it is June 30th of this year. So I do believe we might take credit for these. I can't guarantee anything on how HCD might review it. So to Mr. Klove's comments, I can't guarantee anything that they would do. HCD might look at it differently. But on its face, this project is not a reduction in density. So as a result, we wouldn't have to account for any reduction in density in our future RENA cycle. That is the one beyond the one that we're planning for today. What Mr. Klove is getting to is that when we do reductions in density, and we have been doing this over the years, we had 75 units reduced over the prior planning period, and that did add to our RENA. So all the single-family homes that replaced duplexes over the preceding 8 years did count against us in the current RENA cycle. And I think Mr. Klove is suggesting that, well, will this project count against us in the 7th cycle, which would be 8 years from now? And the answer is I don't believe so, because there is no reduction in density with this project. So I do believe we can proceed forward tonight. And we do feel this project is consistent with the LCP, and we can make all the findings required by the LCP. And we also have been talking to coastal staff very, very closely on this one, and they do believe this project is consistent with the LCP, and they have suggested that there would be no appeal of this action going forward.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Schaffner, do you want to add anything as a rebuttal to the comments, or did Mr. Campbell handle those for you?
Yeah, Mr. Campbell did a very good job responding to those comments. I have nothing to add unless there are questions.
Okay, great. I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Yeah, Commissioner Kleiman.
I just have one quick question. It's actually probably not necessarily relevant to our decision tonight, but just piqued my interest, so I thought I'd ask the question. Is there anything to prevent the applicant from going through this process, getting approval, and then just building the single-family portion and never building the ADUs?
That's a very good question. This permit that we would be issuing today would allow them to build what is before you today, the homes with the single family and with the JADUs. They could not change that project into a single family home and receive a permit for that. And so they would be violating the coastal development permit that we would issue presumably tonight.
Okay. I'm not entirely sure that answered the question, but thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Ketting.
Thank you. Jim, are the junior ADUs market rate rental units, or are they possibly going to be lower mod?
Well, the property owner can do what they want with them. They could use them for their family. They could rent them out at whatever they felt appropriate. And so there would be no limitations on what they would rent them for.
Thank you.
Are you in the market? Any other commissioner questions? Anyone want to make a motion?
Yes,
Commissioner
I think this is a good project, and I'll make a motion for approval. I thought that they did a yeoman's job spending a year talking with the Coastal Commission and getting a workable plan. That's amazing. I applaud them for that. That's a good-looking project. It's beneath some of the code setbacks in the height and everything else, and standing there on the street looking with the plans, it's going to fit nicely in the neighborhood. So I'll make the finding that it's categorically exempt from CEQA and adopt PC 2021-007, Coastal Development Number CD 2019-024, and we'll throw in the tentative parcel map as submitted.
And Commissioner Ketting, if I may ask to make the astute revisions that Mr. Mosier requested on Statement of Facts number 5 and 6.
That's fine.
He is correct.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Moving on to the next item, it's new business. So item number 7, this is the annual general plan progress report, PA 2007-195. That's the site-wide location is citywide. Again, if you want to comment on this item, it's 949-270-8165. Staff, please proceed.
Good evening, Chairman Wigand and members of the Planning Commission, Melinda Whalen, Planning Division. So this is the annual general plan report that's required by state law to be submitted to the Office of Planning and Research and the State Department of Housing and Community Development by April 1st of every year. The report follows general guidance from the Office of Planning and Research and provides an overview of general plan implementation, housing element implementation, and specific data required by the Department of Housing and Community Development. It also provides or explains deficiencies in the current general plan that will require future updates, such as the circulation element, safety element, and housing element. And it also explains priorities for land use decision making. So the general plan update status, back in January 2020, City Council redirected focus of efforts to primarily on updating the housing element for compliance with state law, along with preparing a simultaneous update to the circulation element. And in March, the General Plan Update Steering Committee was dissolved, and the creation of a new Housing Element Update Advisory Committee. And then in April, the City Council authorized a professional services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates for assistance with the updates. And then the meetings of the Housing Element Update Advisory Committee began in July 2020 and held a total of 7 meetings. And city staff, alongside the Housing Element Update Advisory Committee is committed to submitting a compliant adopted housing element by the October 2021 deadline. So an ongoing highlight is the tracking and monitoring of general plan amendments pursuant to Charter Section 423 on the city's webpage. And that shows the webpage, an example of statistical area with the general plan amendments. And then this also shows the transfer of development. And this is just an example snapshot from the webpage available to the public. And these are the maps that are also on the webpage that show the corresponding general plan amendments. And for the housing element portion, the Department of Housing and Community Development require substantial data on housing units for calendar year 2020. And they are interested primarily in net new units, but we also have to provide all submitted unit numbers, approved entitlements, net new building permits issued, and net new occupancy permits issued. So the most important column to focus on is the center column, which is building permits issued. And these are net new. And so these net new units are counted towards the regional housing needs allocation for calendar year 2020. So you can see in red that the city gained 2 very low units, 4 low and 2 moderate through permitted accessory dwelling units. And then 101 above moderate, primarily from the Vivante Senior Housing Project. And so with the 2020 numbers, the city has now met the regional housing needs allocation for this planning period. So additional highlights, which I've already touched on, was the ADU ordinance. We've seen increased numbers of the ADUs submitted, 19 applied, 8 permitted, and 2 finaled in 2020. The Senior Housing Assistance Repair Program is still ongoing. There still remains quite a chunk of the original $600,000 in the fund for maintenance projects for low-income seniors. And then highlights of housing projects that will add substantial units to the city. The residents at Von Carmen, which will be a total of 312 units. And then a conceptual plan in Newport Airport Village for future development of 444 dwelling units. And then I'd also like to provide a housing element update, status and calendar moving forward. So on March 10th, the first draft housing element will be available online. And then there will be several meetings throughout March and April. And then by May 15th, the city will submit the first draft housing element to HCD for the 60-day review. So that concludes my presentation. Staff requests the Planning Commission forward this to the City Council for submittal to OPR and HCD. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Commissioners, ex parte communications? I don't know if that's necessary since it's a staff. No. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Again, the public will take public comment on this. The commission will take public comment on this. If you're watching remotely and want to provide comments, the phone number is 949-270-8165, and we'll start here in the chambers.
Chair Weigand, members of the commission, one last time. This is Jim Mosher. I had 2 questions about this. First is on handwritten page 5, table B, which we saw a slide of, where it's saying in the 5th cycle the total units produced was 1,848. I heard the word net several times, so I just wanted to confirm that this is indeed the net housing production and has been corrected for the reductions in density that the Deputy Director mentioned occurred when a duplex gets changed into a single-family home. Is this indeed corrected for this, or is this the gross new permits that have been issued? And then the second question I had is on handwritten page 15, which we also saw, I think, something in the slides about. Incidentally, I really like these new narrative pages at the beginning. I find them very helpful. No, it's the wrong page number. No, it's page 15 of the report. It's handwritten page 23, which is about the tracking and monitoring program. One aspect of that that's long been promised and has never been quite publicly delivered, I think it's alluding to it here, but I'm not sure, is the analysis of how close the statistical areas are to being built to their general plan limit. That is, how much capacity is left in each statistical area without the need for any general plan amendment. We have areas of the city, for instance, that are zoned and in the general plan designated for duplexes, but they might be developed only with single-family homes. I believe that's what this is alluding to. Has the city reached a conclusion as to how much commercial square footage is left, how much residential capacity is left without any amendment? And if so, is that data available to the public anywhere? Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, do you want to?
Certainly. I don't know the answer to the first question, but Melinda seems to, and I'll take the second one.
So for years 2014 through 2017, it used to be based on permits finalized, so certificates of occupancy, but starting with 2018, it's net new units. So a net increase in units is the ones that are seen in the table.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Thank you, Melinda. So what you'll see in that table is kind of a hybrid of the two. So for those 2 years that Melinda indicated, that's a net increase, and the prior years are just permits issued. So Mr. Mosier's additional question, we do have a robust, database, if you will, of existing development on the ground. We're constantly working on that, to be honest with you. It's as accurate as we think we could make it, but we always find other errors in it. We use that database, and we will use that database as part of our update of the land use element and the circulation element to do our traffic modeling. That database has never been published, but it is something that we utilize. We can determine how much is left in any particular individual area. It's a difficult question to answer specifically because we have a series of anomalies where you've got a whole block and you're looking at 25 properties in a block and how much is there, and researching every building permit that we have records of. Our records are not 100%. We don't have all permits. And so now with residential neighborhoods that are zoned single family or duplexes, we do have a very robust database on how many houses are on each property, so to speak. So we know where the nonconformities are. We know if there's a duplex on an R2 property. We know if there's a single family on an R2 property. And so the question of whether you need a general plan amendment to increase density there is really kind of not accurate, because you wouldn't need to increase the change the general plan, but you couldn't build more than a duplex on an R2 property anyway. So we also have properties that have set limits on the density, and we do have what's on the ground as well. We do have that database. We haven't published it publicly, but it is a public record. So.
Great. All right, thank you. Any commissioners' final questions? I'll close the public hearing. We call for a motion then to finalize this item.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, I'll call for the vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Staff and Commissioner items. Item number 8, motion for reconsideration. Are there any motions? Item 9, report by the Community Development Director or requests of matters which a Planning Commission member would like placed on a future agenda. I'll start with the Director's report.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I'll keep this brief here due to the lateness of the hour. I do want to highlight what's coming on the March 18th meeting. We do have the circulation element. The draft of that is a study session, so you'll have Mr. Brine, our traffic engineer, Tony Petros from LSA, and myself presenting that to you for discussion and public comment. And we have 2 other public hearings. One is Westcliff Plaza, which we continue this evening here. And that really concludes my remarks this evening.
Okay, great. And any Commissioner requests for future? Yes, Commissioner Kenny.
Question, Jim. I noticed pending Coastal Commission items on page 2. Item 4, 215 Riverside Office Parking Structure.
Yes.
Has been appealed to the Coastal Commission?
Yes, it was appealed, and I believe substantial issue was already met, and they have not done the subsequent hearing on the coastal development permit yet. And that, it can take many, many months.
Was that appealed by a neighbor or individual, or?
It was residents. Yeah, it was members of the community, not the commission.
Curious.
Okay, any matters? Any commissioners want to put on a future agenda items? Anyone from the audience want to comment? Okay, I'll move on to item 10, request for excused absences. Any commissioners? Seeing none, I'll adjourn.